The image shows sunlight shining through the dense canopy of trees in the forest. He is breathing heavily and looks exhausted after an intense fight or challenge. In the forest, a group of blue-uniformed warriors surrounded a man sitting on a throne, and in front of them lay the fallen yellow-armored fighters, one of whom uttered an expletive. He stands behind her, and she sits with her hand over her mouth, looking thoughtful or tired. She narrowed her eyes and ordered him to be killed. A muscular masked man raises an axe to strike, while another with a spear prepares to defend. He dodges the blow with an effort, expressing tension and pain. He whirls around, reacting to the sudden sound. He is wearing a black coat and delivers a powerful blow, knocking down two opponents, one of whom is holding an axe. A group of warriors in the forest calls out to Jaehyun, who is intently preparing for battle, surrounded by mystical energy. He shouted as he saw the white-haired man swiftly draw his sword and prepare to charge into the forest. He warns that if everyone attacks him at the same time, then he quickly attacks two opponents with a sword in his hand, delivering powerful blows and causing bursts of energy. A man in a raincoat swings his sword, knocking down two men who fall to the ground. He admits with blood on his face that it all happened because of them, while the three men in armor look at him sadly from behind. Knife in hand, he explains that he doesn't understand why he's apologizing to the other man in the armor. He, holding the sword, says that he is fine and asks to get up, looking at the outstretched hand. He turns to Jaehyun, who looks worried as the other two men watch them from behind. He holds out his hand, and the woman in white sits on the throne with her face covered, creating a tense atmosphere before the meeting. He says with a grin that she can't stop him, and she replies with a confident smile. He watches as a man with white hair comforts an armored wounded man, while other fighters stand and sit around them. Three men in uniform are walking through the forest, and one of them starts talking about joint actions. She looks down with a slight smile on her face, surrounded by light and wind, creating an atmosphere of confidence and calm. She speaks defiantly, and he responds with a grin, their conversation tense and filled with hidden menace. He smiles and looks at the watch on his wrist, which starts to glow with a bright blue light. It intently activates an energy burst from the eyes, creating a powerful glow and a tense atmosphere. He releases a blue energy ring from his hand, accompanied by a sound effect. He is in armor with a sword in his hands, preparing to attack in the forest, surrounded by glowing particles. He smiles and swings his sword at the round liver, exuding confidence and determination. She thinks furiously of the vile man, squeezing her hand and expressing great annoyance. He laughs and declares that he can never be killed while being shot in the stomach. He coughs up blood on his face as the three men watch him closely, creating a tense atmosphere. A warning about fast HP reduction and movement restriction appears on the screen, accompanied by ding sounds. He lies on the ground and asks with difficulty about the meaning of what is happening, while the other stands over him in the rain. Three men stand with their backs to each other in the forest. One with a serious expression on his face says that they all need to do something. He panics and sweats, expressing great fear or shock. She laughs at the frightened man who looks at her with concern. He takes a step in the golden slippers and says that the interlocutor is too involved in his friendship. He lies on the ground and says that he is going to remove another contestant from the game who is standing next to him. She smiles and says that even he won't be able to log in. He's breathing heavily, lying on the ground, his eyes wide open, as if after an intense struggle. He snidely said that the interlocutor had become worthless again. He forcefully digs his hand into the ground, leaving deep marks on the surface. He lunges forward with a yell, trying to grab the other man in the blue uniform. The image shows an explosion of blood and the sound of impact, transmitting the intensity and force of the action without visible characters. He falls down with a knife in his back, and two men in furry clothes look at him in the forest. He stands in the forest with his eyes closed, enjoying the peace and quiet around him. With blood on his face and a wound on his side, he struggles to keep his feet in front of the enemy in the forest. He desperately orders another character to finally die. With blood on his face, he looks up with determination, despite his obvious wounds and fatigue. An exclamation of annoyance rang out against the pink sky and silhouetted trees. He smiles tensely, and she looks down with a slight grin, watching him. Death and danger warnings appear on the screen, creating a tense atmosphere. A lot of warning labels and symbols appear on the screen to signal danger. With his eyes wide open, he feels intense tension, and the impact of red energy waves around his head. He's breathing hard and laughing as he sits on the bed in the darkened room. They hold their head in their hands and experience intense internal tension or pain. The image shows the logo with the image of a golden dragon and the inscription Warlord on the background of a mystical cave. Red Dragon attacks two warriors in a fiery battle that is broadcast live. The image says that the game based on AI and virtual reality brings incredible amounts of money against the background of flying bills. He says with blood on his face that he will not lose in this game as long as he holds a knife on a defeated opponent, and the other listens to him. He smiles and extends his hand, inviting cooperation or friendship. He clutches the clothes in his hand and says his forgiveness, then resolutely walks away. He suddenly attacks 3 people in a narrow street, and one of them retreats in fright, trying to defend himself. He calls Dong-su and wonders why this burden is necessary, so that those scoundrels can live well. The image shows a red traffic light and a moving car wheel creating a tense atmosphere. He tearfully regrets that he did not know how it would end, and feels great pain. He runs towards the glowing object, thinking that he never cared about anyone else to begin with. The scene shows a fall from a height, accompanied by the sounds of impact and screams. The image shows a spectacular sound or impact against a background of red and black spots, with no visible characters or dialogues. On the road lies an injured man in a pool of blood next to an overturned car, and someone shouts that someone was hurt. He said with desperation in his voice that he wanted the other person to just die. She shows intense excitement and tension with a crazy smile and wide eyes. He's lying on the ground with blood on his face and a look of pain and horror in his eyes. The image shows a bright light explosion in the dark, accompanied by the effect of breaking glass and sound. A greeting message for the user, named Hurcan, appears on the screen against a starry sky and glowing elements. He opened his eyes abruptly, reacting to the loud sound around him. A minotaur appears in a dark maze, and someone asks if he is a warlord. He looks down anxiously, aware of the gravity of the situation around him. He shouts for them to get a grip on themselves as both men with swords prepare to attack the red-eyed creature in the dark. A monster with glowing red eyes lets out a loud roar, expressing rage and threat. 3 men with guns are ready to fight, discussing that they will probably have to act together while the wounded and destruction lie around. He warns the other that if he does not stop, he will be killed, and the other replies that he is not afraid of death. He stands in a dark space with a serious expression, as if preparing for an important event or thinking about something important. 3 men with guns are surprised by the behavior of one of them, wondering what is wrong with him. 3 men with swords discuss a plan of action. One of them orders to go outside while the wounded and blood lie around. It runs quickly through the cracks in the ground, creating a sense of intense pursuit or escape. He quickly runs towards the 2 men with swords, who exclaim that he is mad. Someone shouted, "Hey!" loudly, drawing the creature's attention with glowing red eyes. A monster with burning eyes threatens death by attacking a man with white hair who lets out a scream. He is focused on deflecting the attack, radiating glowing eyes and confidently looking ahead. The image shows a powerful energy explosion with bright blue flashes and a light effect, with no visible characters. He delivers a powerful punch surrounded by glowing lines, while his opponent is injured and blood is flying around. The image shows the sound of an explosion or impact, accompanied by a large inscription, "Grash!" He deals a fatal blow to a huge creature, from which blood splashes and splinters fly. They talk, and one of them says something with a smile, causing the other to get a little excited and smile back. With blood on his face, he stares resolutely ahead, preparing for the upcoming battle. He holds out his hand with a smile, inviting cooperation or friendship. He holds out his hand as if inviting or asking for help, against the background of dark lines that create a tense atmosphere. He looks wide-eyed and shocked, with bloodstains and dark spots on his face. He knelt down, sword in hand, while the 2 men watched him and discussed what was going on. They discussed the solution. One of them asks what kind of solution they are talking about. 2 men look down, one smiling and the other watching gravely as a bright light flashes between them. He gets hit hard, causing blood to fly around him, and he closes his eyes. He stands in the blood with red burning eyes, expressing determination and anger. In the image, it is reported that the hero killer named Hurkan has returned. He puts a helmet on his head, preparing to ride a motorcycle that is standing nearby. In the Great Hall, many people are inspecting the capsules, and one man in a helmet comes out of one of them. He remembers that he was out of money 5 years ago and begins to talk about how he lived then. The image shows a tech helmet with a connected cable hanging in a dark room. He abruptly breaks out of the crowd, moving forward in a fast-running motion. He thinks hard about the fact that he has 5 years of future information and experience. Surprised, she says that if she uses it, then... He holds out the bank card in a panic, expressing urgency and tension in his voice. He's panting and bent over, and she sees that and agrees, saying, "Of course." He smiles tightly and breathes heavily, clearly stressed or tired. She shows the man a map and explains something with a smile, and he listens carefully. He says with a dumbfounded look that he did not expect such a turn of events. He begins to speak with tension, but breaks off at the sound of phew, expressing alarm or annoyance. He put his head down on the table and realized that if he had the money, he would have already bought it while the nurse was watching him. He panics about what to do and considers making money, but doubts that he will be able to do it. He looks ahead in horror and shock, as if he has realized something terrible. He looks at the image of a woman and hears that hesitation is a luxury that cannot be allowed in battle. She offers to become a warlord by presenting a model of a warlord called the Thunder Queen to Suri. He stands in front of a huge dragon image and the inscription Warlord, as if preparing for an important challenge or battle. He is silent, looking away, surrounded by the gloomy atmosphere and the light in the background. She shows intense excitement or shock with a crazy smile and wide eyes. He resolutely moves forward, thinking that now is not the time to wait. No one is visible on the roof of the building in the sunset light. The scene conveys calm and expectation. The image shows a large futuristic capsule-shaped object with a metal surface and darkened glass on top. He announces that he is leaving, and the other agrees, standing in the kitchen. He looks down at his hand carefully, as if trying to figure out something important. The image shows a hand holding a yellow business card with an advertisement for quick credit services and a contact number. He smiles and puts his hand on his chest, responding to the actions of the other person whose hand is visible on the table. He stabbed sharply at the hand that held the talisman with the red symbols. He says with a smirk that if the opponent doesn't give up, he will die. He struggles to pull his hand away from the metal device. He holds back his excitement, feeling the sweat break out on his neck. He clenches a few yellow pieces of paper in his fist with determination. He puts on his helmet and mentally says that he is ready to fall into hellfire for something important. He is sitting in the car, watching what is happening in front, and there is a sound that expresses tension or surprise. She looks up with a slight smile, and he smiles down with an expression of cunning and confidence. He's wearing a helmet and shouting, "Connect!" as he tries to connect or activate. It stands confidently against the backdrop of towers, surrounded by a blue glow, and above it appears the inscription, "Welcome to Warlord." He stands tensely, electricity sparking around him, and he looks ahead intently, as if preparing for an upcoming event. It is surrounded by a radiant golden aura and floats in the air against the backdrop of ancient columns and towers. Ariane introduced herself and said that she would help with her career, and another person confirmed that it was her. He intently releases glowing energy from his palm, creating a magical effect. He stands next to her as she activates a magic power with black tentacles and glowing lines around it. The voice explains that there are 3 basic classes and skills that can be developed here. The voice explains that this will determine the specific class it will belong to. It is surrounded by glowing lines and explains that warriors fight on the front lines with melee weapons, recommending this class for exciting fights. He says thoughtfully that playing alone gets harder as you progress, looking at the glowing figure next to him. He prays intently, surrounded by glowing energy, and refuses to use the power of healing to support others. He looks worried, and she smiles as she creates magical energy in her hands, as if trying to calm him down. She clasped her hands, surrounded by glowing energy, preparing for action. He and she touch hands, radiating bright golden sparks of energy. He is concentrating on controlling the bright energy that surrounds him, making sounds. There is a journey to the corresponding tower of the class. A sage on a floating scroll greets a young man seeking knowledge, surrounded by glowing symbols and the mysterious atmosphere of the library. A wise magician with a staff speaks thoughtfully, explaining something important, surrounded by glowing runes. The old man begins to talk about dark magic, addressing a young man standing in a dark room below. He sits on the edge of a building with a staff in his hands and expresses bewilderment by uttering a questioning sound. He stands in a dark room with books and expresses bewilderment with a question mark in his speech. The old man with the staff laughs and asks what the earth is, confirming his doubts. A man with a beard warns that dark magic is strong, but it takes the user's soul. He looks ahead with a determined expression, concentrating on preparing for the upcoming event. He touches his skull, emitting a purple light, and says that everything is going smoothly. Skeleton with a staff that emits bright light and dark energy, preparing for a powerful spell. He stands with a serious expression, holding a book in his hands, and says that if the interlocutor is really ready, then... He slapped his hand sharply on the surface, causing a strong sound and a tense atmosphere. He said with a smile that he wasn't one of those punks, surrounded by the purple energy radiating from his hand. Out of the darkness comes a sinister laugh that sounds like a vicious and prolonged mwahahaha. He looks intently at his hand, which is surrounded by dark energy, and expresses surprise at what is happening. He is enraged and radiates dark energy, his eyes glowing with a blue light, expressing determination and anger. A mysterious hooded character with glowing eyes is surrounded by purple flames and makes an ominous sound. He is floating in the air, surrounded by purple flames, and in front of him stands an army of skeletons with glowing eyes, ready for battle. He clenches his fist, surrounded by mystical energy, and receives a message that he has now become a necromancer. Notifications appear when you receive the title of Necromancer Initiate and the skill Skeleton Fragment. He summons a magical skull surrounded by blue electricity with a smile on his face. He stands surrounded by blue energy, summoning a skull that spews out powerful light and power. The skull is recreated with mana, forming a skeletal warrior. He calmly looks at the skeleton surrounded by blue flames and making sounds. A skeleton surrounded by blue flames stands in the darkness, radiating an ominous energy. He looks away with a smile and begins to speak, expressing confidence and a slight sneer. He watches a skeleton throw a skull, making noises as it falls. He stands in the midst of a huge number of books, looking at the skeleton, which is silent. He steps on the ground, surrounded by bright blue energy and lightning sparks, causing cracks in the stone surface. He stands in front of the glowing portal and sighs heavily, putting his hand to his head. He is surprised to notice that the skeleton in front of him is not as relaxed as the ones he saw in his previous life. A skeleton fragment appears on the screen with the word skeleton fragment and a sound effect. He looks thoughtfully at the glowing screen and thinks about the need to level up. 3 wolves with red eyes and steam from their mouths growl as they approach in the dark and gloomy surroundings. He says, "Skeleton fragment" with a smile, and creates blue energy bones emanating from his hand. A falling blue fire object is shown, accompanied by sound effects. 3 red-eyed and sinister-looking wolves walk up the slope, creating an atmosphere of impending menace. Someone creates a powerful blue energy ball that emits bright light and energy. The skeleton warrior notices the enemy and takes a fighting stance, surrounded by blue flames. A skeleton with a burning blue eye lets out a loud cry, accompanied by a bright flash of energy. 3 red-eyed wolves approach tensely, snarling. The skull emits a bright blue light from its eye socket, creating a tense and mystical atmosphere. The skeleton is confronted by 3 vicious red-eyed wolves that growl and charge at him. He smiles and laughs, expressing confidence and a slight sneer. Skeleton with a club fights with 3 evil wolves, thinking that at this rate it will quickly reach the maximum level. He stands amid shattering bones and skulls with glowing eyes, surrounded by destruction and a tense atmosphere. He watches in surprise as a fist smashes through the space next to his head before he can dodge. He stepped on a glowing creature that was making noises as it tried to escape. A skull with shining blue eyes lies on the rocks, expressing surprise or fright. He looks ahead in horror and bewilderment, surrounded by lightning, expressing great shock and confusion. He points anxiously and tensely at the wall, as if trying to activate or summon something. The image shows a fragment with the inscription, "Skeleton Fragment," and the effect of a bright glow. He squeezes his head and expresses pain or frustration while standing in the background of the night sky. The creature's glowing blue eye emits powerful energy, creating a tense and dynamic atmosphere. 3 wolves with red eyes pull the stick in different directions, making sounds of tension. He stands with his back turned and watches as the skeleton with red eyes falls to the ground, making a sound. He watches as the huge skeleton fights the wolves, raising his fist in a victory gesture. He tearfully admitted that he was in trouble, and the skeleton next to him said that he tried to stop him. He is breathing heavily and leans his hand on the ground. Rapid footsteps, and his tired breathing can be heard. He's sitting on the ground with his head in his hands, the skeleton next to him reminding him of his debts, and he thinks that maybe he should get hit by a car again. He sighs heavily and holds his head, expressing fatigue and annoyance. He says irritably that the skeleton doesn't help either, as long as it attacks him from behind. With his eyes closed and a drop of sweat on his face, he speaks with an expression of despair and fatigue. 3 modes appear on the screen: defense, attack, and special action accompanied by a loud sound. He spots the wolves and sees another character preparing to attack, while the skeleton watches from behind. He is concentrating on controlling the skeleton, holding a long object in his hands, preparing for action in a dark space. A skeleton with blue glowing eyes catches a wooden stick that flies towards it. The skeleton says that a person is happy to have such a master, and he, bending over, begins to explain that this is not so. A skeleton with bright glowing eyes looks forward in surprise and expresses bewilderment. He fiercely strikes a powerful blow, expressing determination and strength in battle. The image shows the sound of impact or collision, accompanied by flying fragments. The skeleton falls to the ground, and someone shouts, "Again!" The skeleton fell to the ground, and someone exclaimed, demanding to repeat the action. A skeleton with bright glowing eyes holds a staff and makes a loud sound, expressing determination or threat. It deals a powerful blow to the skeleton with blue glowing eyes, causing a strong collision effect. It abruptly hit the ground, causing an explosion that sent out a skeleton with blue glowing eyes. He shouts the command, "Follow up!" and orders to look for an opportunity to attack. A skeleton with glowing eyes raises a hand to its face, as if about to do something or say something. A skeleton with glowing eyes stands in the rain, holding a wooden stake in his hands, preparing to attack. The image shows a loud growling sound that creates a tense atmosphere. He stands with his weapon ready for the attack of 2 red-eyed wolves that are rushing at him. A skeleton with a burning eye prepares to attack, and behind it appears the silhouette of a dragon in the shadows. A monster with red eyes spews out a powerful energy stream, destroying everything in its path. A skeleton with a shining eye deals a powerful blow with a glowing sword, breaking through the wall. A skeleton with a baton is surrounded by 3 vicious wolves with red eyes, which growl and prepare to attack. The skeleton with shining eyes is silent in surprise, and another character asks what he is looking at. He stands in a glow of light, around which appears a message about improving the skill of the skeleton fragment. The skeleton is surrounded by glowing rings, standing in a cave with ruined walls and holding a sword in his hand. He smiles with confidence, surrounded by a glowing halo, as if preparing for an important event. In the center of the village, several people are gathered at the fountain, and the inscription, "Beginner Village, Figus Castle," appears on the screen. He thinks the skeleton was really useful, while someone is looking for a group to raid the forest spider among passers-by. He looks ahead with a slight smile, and a part of an armored figure is visible nearby, creating a tense atmosphere. He looks up in surprise when he hears the sound that caught his attention. He asks if it's okay to lean on someone's shoulder, and another confirms it by referring to him as the boss, while a third reacts in surprise. He sighs heavily and talks about all his friends. He shouts furiously, not believing that this is just a conversation. A man in a red patterned shirt has grabbed the other's arm, and a third with white hair is watching in surprise. He smiled with relief and took off his glasses, expressing joy and relaxation. He asks if he's with him, and the other says, thoughtfully, while the third doesn't say anything. He is looking ahead intently, sweating, and clearly experiencing anxiety or fear. He admires the other person's muscles, Noticing their strength and relief, he laughs and says it's a strange fashion. He smiles as he remembers Matador Chev, the strongest warrior of his past life. He anxiously asks what the other person is doing here. He said, "Shh," in exasperation, as he watched the other man hit the floor hard and the third man stands nearby watching the scene. He clenches his hands with a tense expression and makes a sound, expressing strong emotions against the red, ominous light. He smiles awkwardly and says it was an accident, scratching the back of his head. He stands surrounded by a red fire aura, showing off his strength, while the other two watch him from behind. He screams in panic, and the other tries to protect himself from the fire attack by covering his face with his hand. He said that since she had just punched him in the palm of her hand, then he is surrounded by flames and says with determination that he must do the same as someone else. In a panic, he turns to the man with a cry of "Sir!" Зрение, и мужчина указывает на пальцем в удивление и тревогу. He smiles and says that he is known for his love of fighting, and behind him appears an image in red armor with horns. He is shocked and screams with tension, expressing bewilderment. He smiled and put his hand on the shoulder of the other man, who looked tense and scared in response. He smiles tightly and remains silent, sweating with excitement. The man in black apologizes as he runs away, while the other two, one with a sword on his back, watch him. He laughs, and the two masked men behind him are confused, trying to figure out what the words mean. With a smile, he put his arm around the other, who lowered his head in silence and began to speak. He jerked his hand away from the other person in surprise or rejection. The hooded man says he doesn't want to fight, and the other one listens in surprise and raises his hand. He watches the man in the white shirt leave with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, while other passers-by around them continue their business. He says, "Man," with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, expressing slight surprise or fatigue. He quickly leaves with the hood on, and the two men watch him while he expresses annoyance. He squeezes his hand with an effort, feeling a lot of tension and trembling. He slammed his fist down hard on the surface, expressing anger and determination. He looks ahead with tension and anger, preparing for action. A torch burns on the wall, illuminating the cracks and destruction all around. He sits in a dark dungeon lit by torches, deep in thought. He reflects on the fact that Shiru and Chev are equal in power, and realizes that in order to get revenge, he needs to become stronger. He covers his face with his hand as a huge beast appears out of the darkness, its red eyes flashing and its mouth gaping open. The skeleton delivers a powerful blue electric shock to the huge monster, while the hooded man watches the fight from a safe distance. A skeleton with shining eyes deals a powerful blow, causing an explosion and destruction all around. The skeleton gets a level up, its eye glows with a bright blue light, accompanied by a glow effect and an energy background. As he lowered himself, a skeleton with a staff suddenly appeared behind him, preparing to attack. He looks at the skeleton with its head down and glowing eyes, who is clearly upset or depressed. A message about reaching level 10 appears on the screen, accompanied by a bright effect. A message appears on the screen, stating that there are no more monsters in the training dungeon and the newbie symbol has been removed. He smiles as he activates the glowing energy on his wrist, surrounded by a golden glow. A glowing smartwatch screen appears on your hand, displaying statistics, tasks, and a map. He looks at his watch with a smile, thinking of something pleasant. The screen displays the status of a character named Hurkan with level 10, Necromancer class, and basic strength and endurance stats. He thinks about spending stat points for the first time and decides to be careful about it. He stands in a blaze of light, surrounded by energy particles, radiating confidence and strength. He said, thoughtfully, and began to concentrate the energy in his hand, causing a glowing glow to appear around him. The skeleton with blue glowing eyes looks scared and sweats, making a sound of surprise. He watches the skeleton with its head in its hands, as if crying, making a sniffle sound. He violently hits the blue-eyed skeleton's head, expressing determination in battle. He looks down carefully, concentrating on what's going on. The image shows a close-up of a face with a bright blue eye and a wide smile, creating an ominous atmosphere. He reacts irritably to the blue-eyed skeleton, trying to change the subject. He held up a finger with a smile, expressing confidence and joy. Several people stand and walk past the building of the Raider Association branch in Figus Castle on Sunny Street. He abruptly stretches out his hand, holding a mysterious card with symbols, making a loud sound as he does so. The white-haired man stands calmly as the two men try to dodge the punch he threw in a panic. A young man in a hood explains something to an old man with a beard, standing at a table with spread-out cards, and the latter listens with his arms crossed. An old man with a white beard and a scar on his face looks intently ahead, as if he's about to say something important. There are cards on the table, and one of the characters says that someone really wants them and is sure of it. He looks thoughtfully at the cards spread out in front of him, trying to unravel their meaning. He smiles, holding up a card with a mysterious symbol on it, as if preparing for an important action. A task appears on the screen with a reward of 10 gold to destroy all low-level monsters near Bhima Mountain. The old man looks thoughtfully at the glowing device, and the young man confirms his words with a short, "Yes." He smiles at the glowing screen, thinking thoughtfully about what's happening. He thinks he can get a super rare title called Prospect. He explains that getting a title boosts stats by showing your current titles and mana and intelligence bonuses. With a furious expression, he activates an ability that increases intelligence and mana by 3%, explaining that this title increases stats by a percentage. He explains with a smile that this will launch his career as a very strong character. He says something with a smile, standing in front of the building and the clear sky. Sounds are heard against the background of the forest and ruins on Mount Bhima, creating an atmosphere of mystery and antiquity. He looks ahead intently, making a sharp sound that expresses determination or sudden realization. He stands confidently with a sword in his hand against the blue sky with the effect of movement. He stands in the forest with a sword in his hand. Crows fly around, one sitting on his head, the other at his feet. He punches the other man sharply on the head, causing him to cry out in pain. He realized that after buying the skeleton equipment, he didn't have any money left for a strong leather armor, and said, "Ah," with regret. He gets down on one knee in a rage, preparing to fight or defend himself. He runs through the forest, trying to complete the task as quickly as possible. An empty forest clearing is surrounded by bushes and trees. Footsteps can be heard, but the characters are not visible. The bloody hand surges forward abruptly, giving off the feeling of a powerful and sudden blow. He, wounded and lying on the ground, barely asks for help, stretching out his hand from the bushes. A hand appears from behind the bushes, and a voice begs for help. 3 men smile ominously in the dark, making ominous kiki sounds. The image shows the sky with clouds and leaves falling between trees, with no visible characters. Multi announces that he begins his BIM adventure by standing in the forest in armor. He said with a smile that everything was under control, and there was no need to worry. He panics for help, saying that his friend is injured and begs for help, while the other reacts in surprise. He asked in surprise what had happened as he approached the person sitting on the ground. He's breathing hard and says they don't have any healing potions, despite the bloody wounds. He looks nervously at the device on his wrist and tries to sort it out, visibly flustered. He rubs his eyes and expresses displeasure, addressing the other man, who is standing with his back to the audience. He panics as he tries to activate the device, while a creature with red eyes and a mace swings at him from behind. The image shows a spectacular explosion of blood with large sound effects, transmitting a sharp and powerful blow. He is lying on the ground with blood on his face, and she is looking at him from behind, expressing concern. 2 men are smiling and talking, and the third one is standing behind with a sly smile, watching them. He's lying on the ground with blood on his face, and he's having a hard time saying something to himself. He smiles, clutching the bloody weapon in his hand, making the sound of impact. He sits with his hands clasped, surrounded by glowing symbols, and other figures stand nearby, as if preparing for action. The watch falls to the ground, accompanied by the sounds of hitting and splashing water. One of the men called the other a coward, and the third laughed loudly as the girl stood between them, her back turned. He shows a hand sign with a crazy smile, showing that he belongs to the villainous guild of the Ralph family. 2 creatures with red eyes growl at each other in the forest, expressing aggression. A skeleton with a sword stands threateningly in front of 2 defeated opponents, preparing for the next actions. He deflects the attack of 2 fierce red-eyed wolves, which growl and charge at him. He snaps his fingers and smiles, making a clicking sound. In the forest, he summoned a skeleton with burning eyes, which swiftly rushed forward, destroying the ground around it. A skeleton with a blue eye attacks two creatures with red eyes, delivering a powerful blow accompanied by sounds of destruction. A skeleton with a sword fights ancient wolves, and the observer notes that the pack is no longer a threat to him. He puts on a hood with ears and smiles through his tears, expressing mixed feelings. He suddenly notices that someone values utility more than looks. A skeleton with shining eyes regrets its unfortunate owner, standing among the remains while another character watches over it. He told the skeleton that he was done and led it through the forest. A skeleton with a sword is preparing to attack when a bright circle of light suddenly appears. A skeleton with glowing eyes reacts sharply to a sudden event, expressing surprise. He notices the arrow in a panic and asks in surprise, "Is it really an arrow?" The skeleton with an arrow in its back and him in a suit with ears look in surprise at the figure in the shadows that suddenly appeared in front of them. Three men in the forest look worried, and one of them explains that it is a monster from afar. He calms the other person down by saying that everything is fine, and the other person reacts in surprise to his words. A hand holding a watch is covered in blood against a red wall, creating a tense atmosphere. He spots a tube of blood against the red light, studying its contents intently. He laughs, and the blue-eyed skeleton says he'll forgive him. They discuss whether to do something, and one of them explains that mana will automatically recover when you level up. He pleaded guilty, while a man with a beard and two others listened to him in the woods. Three men in the forest notice the appearance of monsters, and one of them says that they seem to appear at the right time. Three men are talking on the street. One of them, with a smile, says that you need to remove something. The two men are smiling and talking very close to each other. He resolutely attacks the dragon, preparing to deliver a powerful blow in response to the creature's aggression. He decides to put a buff on the attack and send one towards the enemy, pretending that he made a mistake. He is confronted by a fierce beast with glowing eyes that roars and charges at him. He screams in horror as he tries to defend himself from the oncoming vicious creature with sharp teeth and a red glow. The three men smile maliciously at first, and then look ahead with alarm and bewilderment, expressing doubt and concern. The skeleton says that the situation could have been bad, and he asks why the other can't move faster, standing next to the defeated wolves in the forest. He happily gives a thumbs up, and the skeleton next to him emits glowing eyes, causing surprise in the observer. He thoughtfully asked who it might be, and the other, sweating, replied that in that case it was necessary to act. He and she fight multiple monsters that attack them at the same time. He warns that as soon as the enemy is distracted, it will be possible to strike. Someone said emphatically that they were going to overthrow him. A man with a mace swings at a hooded man who stands quietly, oblivious to the threat. He attacks with ferocity, radiating powerful energy and causing a violent explosion around him. The image shows the moment of a strong impact or collision with a bright red light and a motion effect. He is shocked and exclaims with tension in his voice, "What?" He turns sharply, readying himself for action. He lands a powerful blow with his sword, injuring a large, bearded man who responds by screaming in pain. He watches in horror as the other fights a skeleton and monsters in the forest, not understanding what is happening. He abruptly grabbed the other's arm, either in surprise or alarm. A skeleton with burning blue fire eyes radiates powerful energy in the dark. Two of them are standing in the distance, and the other two with weapons are rushing towards them, preparing to attack. Two men in a panic offer to talk and settle the conflict. He screams in pain as he gets hit by a glowing weapon, and the other reacts in horror to what is happening. A man with white hair attacks the skeleton, knocking out two enemies that fly off with blood. He and the skeleton with swords are standing in the forest. Around the defeated opponents lie, and they are preparing for the next battle. He takes a step on the ground. A distinctive sound is heard under his feet. He lies on the ground with blood on his face and looks up between the other person's legs. He lies in a pool of blood and shouts, promising to give something back. He raises his sword to the sky and says that he doesn't trust people anymore. He strikes a powerful blow with a knife at the enemy, who is wounded and flies back. He found out that a gambler named Ralph had died, and 8 orphan hours had fallen out. He is holding a sword with a smirk on his face, and saying something while kneeling in the forest among the scattered objects. The skeleton attacks from behind and kicks a man lying on the ground in the back, while another pink-clad figure quickly approaches them. The image shows a skull with glowing blue eyes and bloodstains against a dark purple pattern that creates an ominous atmosphere. He intently releases a blue magic flame from his hand next to the skull, creating a mystical glow. He stretches out his hand to the glowing skull, from which a blue mystical glow emanates. A skeleton with a sword in his hand held it up and announced that they were going into battle. A skeleton with blue eyes laughs merrily and asks another character if he likes something in the forest. He says, with his hooded eyes closed, that he doesn't want anyone to get hurt because of him. He's wearing a hood with a sword on his back and says that the main thing is what's inside, and quickly moves forward in the forest. He turns with a grin to the blue-eyed skeleton, who looks wary and tense. The image shows a watch with a digital decay effect and explains that when selling another player's watch, a random item will drop out of their inventory. The image shows a sword with a handle resembling an ancient tree against the background of the sky and stars. The image shows a book with an eye on the cover, surrounded by purple flames, with the words, "To Skill Books," and Demon's Curse written on it. He laughs happily and flips gold coins, expressing delight at what is happening. With a smile, he creates a glowing blue energy ball in his hand, standing against the background of trees. He catches a falling object, reacting quickly and intently. He smiles in the hood against the background of the forest, and starts talking about creating something. He enthusiastically says it will make them go viral, and the other one sitting next to him reacts thoughtfully. He laughs and holds the mask in his hand, expressing joy and lightness of mood. He silently looks at the mask in his hand while in the forest. He raises his hand, and a mask appears in front of him, shrouded in blue flames, which begins to glow and radiate energy. He gritted his teeth and made a sound of pain or tension. He orders the skeleton to go, and both of them rush forward into the forest. He stands at a glowing portal at the top of a stone staircase among high rocks surrounded by mist and vines. He and the skeleton enter the portal and find themselves in the dungeon of Mount Bhima. He is standing in a cave and thinks that blue werewolves appear in this dungeon. He says with a smile that he is going to run a 10-minute race. A hooded man with a mask on his face shouted that it was time to go. A skeleton with a sword attacks the person in the shadows, making a sound like a scream. A skeleton with blue eyes shows a thumbs up against a background of flowers and an inscription stating that several hours have passed. He is horrified to realize that his plan has failed, and inwardly criticizes himself for being stupid. He exclaimed in alarm, asking if there were any monsters here. He is shouting into the abyss with a sword, and the skeleton next to him is silently watching what is happening. He anxiously holds his head while the skeleton attacks him with light strikes. He looks ahead intently, gritting his masked teeth as he prepares for the upcoming event. He and the skeleton with the dagger discover and study a mysterious purple magical substance, while he begins to say what it is. The two stand in front of a huge swirl of purple energy surrounded by lightning and dark shadows. He fell to the ground, noticing the lack of monsters, and the skeleton next to him scratched his head and held a sword. The image shows a purple swirl accompanied by text about randomly appearing one-time dungeons inside other dungeons. He looks intently and with determination, as if preparing for an important event or battle. He in the hood warns the skeleton to pass it, feeling the pain in his back. He looks away thoughtfully, lost in thought. A message about entering the stage appears on the screen, accompanied by a sound effect. He is surrounded by purple energy and stands next to the glowing skeleton, making sounds of pain or effort. He raises his hand to ward off the blow, his expression tense and a mask on half of his face. Two men stand in a ruined amphitheater next to a shimmering purple portal surrounded by dark smoke. The image shows a ruined amphitheater with a staircase and sounds that convey tension or the approach of something important. He said the word Colosseum in surprise, and the skeleton next to him looked alarmed against the purple energy vortex. He has his eyes closed and is distorted with pain, with a mask on his face and a hood on his head, as if he is fighting an internal or external enemy. Two swordsmen stand in front of a huge, vicious wolf with red eyes and a third eye on its forehead, which is breathing heavily and preparing to attack. The image shows a corrupt werewolf with bright red eyes and an open mouth, making a loud roar. The masked man is horrified to see the dark claws rapidly closing in on him. A huge wolf attacks a man with a sword, and a skeleton with a staff watches the fight. He screams with a mask on his face from the impact, debris and dust flying around. The skeleton stands still, watching the explosion and rising dust on the ground. A skeleton with blue eyes clutches a sword and snarls, preparing to fight. He bursts into the wall with the sword in his hands, letting out a loud cry. He is wearing a hood and mask, expressing his displeasure, standing by the ruined wall. Red-eyed and masked, he gleefully prepares to strike with his sword. He charges at the red-eyed monster with a sword, while another man stands behind and watches the fight. A skeleton with burning eyes fiercely attacks with a sword in the arena under a gloomy sky. He abruptly dodges a blow from a skeleton with a sword, defending himself in a tense fight. A dark figure with red eyes appears from the bright light, making an ominous sound. A dark figure with a red eye plummets down against the gloomy sky, creating a sense of impending threat. The red-eyed monster lets out a loud roar, expressing rage and pain. It concentrates energy in the hand, creating a mystical purple glow with blue sparks around the fingers. He casts the spell, Demon's Curse, and releases magical energy from the sword, surrounded by blue and purple flames. A huge wolf with a third eye and surrounded by dark purple energy appears in front of them, causing them shock and surprise. The red-eyed wolfman releases a powerful purple energy vortex while standing on the ground in a tense battle stance. He delivers a powerful blow, surrounded by purple energy, aimed at an unknown creature with claws. The wolf lets out a loud roar as it activates the Demon's Curse skill, accompanied by dark energy and bloody flashes. He stands with a sword, preparing for battle, while a huge beast with its mouth open approaches him. A dark wolf with red eyes roars, surrounded by ominous red flames and a tense atmosphere. He stands with his sword, watching as a huge beast with red eyes and a furious growl charges at him. Notifications have appeared, stating that an enraged, corrupt werewolf will neutralize all status effects. He is wearing a hood with a mask on his face, preparing for battle, raising his sword behind his back. He shows off a glowing object on his wrist with red glowing eyes and a mask on his face, smiling with confidence. He stands with his back surrounded by blue flames and makes a powerful sound like he's releasing energy. The image shows a powerful explosion or energy explosion with bright blue light and flying fragments. The scene shows a bright blue burst of energy surrounded by flying shards and shadows, with no characters visible. The image shows a magical or energy object surrounded by glowing blue lines that moves at high speed. He is surrounded by blue flames and says with determination that he is ready to act. The image shows a glowing blue symbol with sharp and curved elements on a dark background. The image shows a glowing gaming gadget accompanied by text about the player's use of the slot-on function. He stands with his arms outstretched, surrounded by a radiant blue energy that symbolizes the temporary strengthening of forces from the warrior world. A man with a red cape looks confidently back. A woman in a white uniform touches her neck thoughtfully, and a young man with white hair smiles against the shadows. Wearing armor and a mask, he summons powerful blue flames surrounded by mystical energy. He smiles, surrounded by blue flames with glowing eyes behind his mask, making a sound like the hiss of fire. A character in metal armor raises an arm surrounded by blue flames, preparing for action. The monster lets out a loud roar, opening its mouth with sharp teeth. With a blue flame in his hand, he prepares to attack the two dark creatures approaching him. A monster with red eyes and a third eye on its forehead attacks furiously, radiating powerful energy and destroying everything around it. He fights several red-eyed wolves, deflecting their attacks and delivering powerful punches. The armored man slammed his fist down sharply on the ground, causing a strong sound and dust to form. A powerful explosion occurs, scattering rocks and dust, creating the feeling of a strong impact or collision. He assesses the speed and strength of the boss monster as overwhelming and reflects on the consequences of its blows. A monster with red eyes and 3 eyes on its forehead furiously attacks the person, letting out a loud roar. He unleashes a powerful blue energy punch, hitting the red-eyed monster in a dark environment. He delivers a powerful blow to the huge creature, which lets out a loud cry of pain and splashes blood. He smiles, surrounded by a dark cloak with blue lights, as if preparing for a battle or an important event. He screams in horror as the ground around him begins to collapse and crumble. He fights a huge monster that destroys the earth with a powerful blow, causing him to be amazed. He sighed and admitted that he had forgotten something important, covering his face with his hand. He stands in shattered armor with a skull on his belt, surrounded by smoke and debris. He confidently poses in front of a huge monster with red eyes, making a sound that expresses his determination and strength. He fights, his eyes shining with a bright blue light, and his face shows determination and tension. A skeleton with glowing eyes asks if the other person is forgetting something important. The skeleton delivers a powerful blow, deflecting the attack of a wolf-like creature with red eyes, while a dark figure watches from behind. He whirled around, making a sound as if warning of approaching danger. The monster with 3 red eyes roars furiously, expressing aggression and threat. 2 warriors with weapons swiftly attack a huge wolf-like opponent in the arena. They attack the wolf-headed creature, releasing powerful blue energy streams, aiming to strike at the same time. He is wearing armor and holding a sword as he stands next to the skeleton, while blood and light shoot out from it, creating an explosive scene. He said with a smile that it wasn't bad. Surrounded by a mystical blue energy, the glowing portal suddenly opens, emitting a bright light and creating a vortex of energy. In the cave of Mount Bhima, 2 red-eyed wolves howl against a backdrop of mountains and bright light. A task appears on the screen to subdue monsters at the cave of Mount Bhima with a reward of 10 gold. Skeleton is surprised to see that his skeleton fragment skill has been upgraded to E rank after defeating a strong monster. He is happy about the rewards he received for the task, including money and items, and says that the rewards are really generous. The image shows a sparkling blue crystal on a chain surrounded by radiance and starlight on a purple background. Hooded and armored, he looks around warily, noticing something behind him. He tensely asks to wait. He stands in front of 3 large screens that display digital data, and a sound like rustling is heard. A dark-haired man with red eyes summons a dragon, threatening a blonde-haired man in a military uniform who is standing with his back to them. Several people hold out their hands to the bright light, discussing that this is the main task of a warlord. He says something with a smile and passion, while wearing a hood and looking straight ahead. The image shows a residential building with balconies against the sunset sky. He is wearing a mask with horns and makes a gesture with 2 fingers as if to emphasize the importance of what he said. The image shows a large robot or creature with mechanical elements, on which the mouse cursor is hovered over the pause button. He sits at the computer, holding a mug in one hand, and looks at the image of the creature on the screen. He's crying and shaking, blood on his lip, holding a cup in his hand. He dropped his head on the table in despair, holding the cup in his hand, expressing great disappointment or fatigue. The hero reflects that the whole world is now focused on fighting corruption, and the main mission of the leader is almost completed. He thought about the possible release of a video related to Graf's corruption. The screen shows a video with 2 characters, one of which looks at the other with bright glowing eyes. He holds 2 explosive shells with a smile, surrounded by flying pieces of paper, showing confidence and authority. He has a sinister smile on his face as he sits at the computer in a room with scattered sheets of paper. He remembers being called a god in a previous life. The hand puts the phone on the table, and a notification of a new message appears on the screen. She eats noodles with chopsticks, listens to music on her headphones, and looks at her phone at the same time. He scans the messages on his phone, concentrating on choosing the right message. She smiles as she listens to music on her headphones and taps on her phone screen. She stands with her back to the viewer, looking intently out of the window, sensing the approach of something important or dangerous. She happily looks at the phone, holding it in her hand, while the other hand adjusts the headphones on her head. She is standing by the window with a tablet in her hands, looking out at the city at night, a glass of wine and a bottle on the table next to her. He anxiously accepts the tablet that is handed to her, clearly not expecting this turn of events. He smiles, adjusting his glasses, and looks at the phone screen with interest. She looks away thoughtfully, touching her face lightly with her hand and radiating calmness. She says the nickname Warlord thoughtfully with a slight smile on her face. He held his head and anxiously said that something had gone wrong. He looks at his phone with a smile, sitting in a room with a lot of bottles and glasses in the background. He looks at the phone with a tense expression and says that it usually doesn't reach this level. He falls backwards, hitting the floor with a loud thud. The message, "Connecting," appears on the screen, showing the connection process. He resolutely said that we need to act while the situation is hot, in order to connect. He looks in the mirror, which reflects a person falling or falling backwards, and expresses surprise. He's wearing a suit of armor and looking at his phone with a smile, enjoying what he's seen. He looks thoughtfully at the photo and wonders if he's met this person somewhere before. He expressed surprise at the sight of a woman named Yahello walking confidently forward. He in armor said that he couldn't let her leave while standing in front of her with red hair. He is happily telling something, holding the device in his hands, and is clearly inspired by his story. She touches her hair with a smile and closed eyes, expressing a slight annoyance or dissatisfaction. She grabbed his arm sharply, making him stagger back, surprised by the sudden movement. He smiles and winks, making a gesture with his fingers, expressing confidence and enthusiasm. She stands with her head bowed and her arms crossed, expressing thoughtfulness and silence. A few people shout with delight and rejoice that someone has finally come. He lowered his head, looking tired or disappointed. The image shows a red shoe stepping on the floor, with no visible characters or dialogues. The crowd cheers as Madagor Chu, ranked 9th among the warlords, stands in full armor in the arena. A warrior in red armor is surrounded by blue flames and prepares to attack against the backdrop of a vortex of dark energy. He stands in front of a glowing purple portal surrounded by dark shadows and energy, preparing to enter it. He smiles slyly, showing his teeth in the dim light. A warrior in red armor with a horned helmet with a smile orders to prepare for battle, radiating powerful energy. Several men in armor and cloaks walk past a building with a sign that reads, Raider Association, Fagus Castle Branch. He's wearing a hood and looking ahead with a slight smile, creating a sense of intense anticipation. He slammed his fists on the table, causing tension while the other two looked worried and silent in the room. The image shows 3 maps with tasks: destroy weeds, hunt 3 wolves, and find a lost dog. He clutches the black cards to himself, looking tensely away. The old man told the other about the Mountain Bima dungeon. He looks ahead in surprise, as if he has noticed something unexpected. He asks thoughtfully if this was a reference to the past. He's standing in armor in a room where a man with white hair has his back turned and says he can't afford to lose another person. He says something important with a serious expression, looking away. He listens intently, feeling corrupt, and sweat builds up on his face. He said they hadn't figured out exactly who the creatures were yet, standing between 2 vicious wolves with glowing eyes. He touches his beard thoughtfully, lost in thought. He abruptly grabbed the other hand, showing determination and tension in the moment. He grabbed the other's hand with a twinkle in his eyes and exclaimed that this was a hidden quest. He excitedly holds the old man's hands and says that he can't give up, and the old man listens to him anxiously. He rubs the back of his head and says with a smile that he wasn't expecting this turn of events. He listens in surprise to what someone is saying, and his eyes express shock and bewilderment. He looks in surprise at the glowing object that appears in front of him, taking it as a recommendation. The image shows an envelope with a red seal on a light background that creates a glow effect around it. He exclaims, "Yes!" in the background of the building with determination in his voice. The masked man happily raised his hands in the air, while the others, including the red-haired man, watched him with interest. He asks with a grin if the other person wants to become a Himbri's apprentice, while the 2 men in armor are discussing something in the background. He looks back thoughtfully at the background of shining stars, as if reflecting on an important event. The image states that the Ahimbri NPC is coveted by all mages, as it provides the rarest skill books. He watches the ancient books and scrolls floating around in surprise. The hooded man runs, thinking that his rank overlaps with the main task, while the other 3 watch him. He abruptly steps on the ground, making a loud sound. He's wearing a hooded grin and says something with confidence, creating a tense atmosphere. The wind rustles in the branches of the trees, scattering the leaves through the air. He is standing in the forest, surrounded by falling leaves, and a loud sound is heard, attracting attention. He said skeleton fragment and released a glowing skull in the forest. A skeleton with blue eyes is surrounded by blue flames, and another character in armor is looking at it, holding a sword at the ready. He smiles and shows off the magical blue energy radiating from his hand. A question pops up on the screen about whether he wants to use the werewolf skull to power up the skeleton warrior. Skeleton warrior gains werewolf traits, increasing his stamina by 2, which causes him to be surprised. He shows off the glowing amulet, holding it in his open palm, and looks confident, as if he's going to use its power. He activates the necklace, and the effects of the corrupted ranger's necklace begin to affect him. He turns to the skeleton in the forest, and the latter reacts in surprise to his words. He says the word fragment with a smile, holding a glowing blue fire in the shape of a skull in his hand. The skeleton noticed the approaching blue fire skull and was surprised by the sudden attack. The bright blue fireball expands rapidly, radiating powerful energy and creating an explosion effect. 3 skeletons with blue lights in their eyes suddenly appear in the forest, causing one of them to be surprised. 3 skeletons with blue eyes suddenly appear in front of the man in the forest, making a strange sound. He tells the skeleton not to get so close while the other 2 skeletons are watching them in the forest. He stands in a forest surrounded by skeletons with glowing eyes, one of which screams while clutching its head. A huge level 25 forest bear roars furiously, opening its mouth with sharp teeth. He is confronted by a huge green monster, which releases a powerful stream of energy from its mouth. He dodges a falling huge blade that shatters the ground and rocks around him. He is wearing a hood and standing in front of a huge angry bear with red eyes, which raises its paw to attacks. He abruptly raised his hand, exclaiming in fright. He puts on a hood with a smile on his face, while a skeleton with a sword attacks a huge beast with red eyes. A creature with glowing eyes makes a loud sound, expressing strong emotions or warning. A skeleton falls to the ground after being attacked by a moss-covered creature in a forest. He is wearing a hood with white hair holding his head and screaming in pain or despair. A skeleton with a sword quickly rushes to the attack, and the voice orders to call the next one. A skeleton with a sword jumps on a huge bear with red eyes, and a man with a sword watches them from the forest. A monster with red eyes jumps on a skeleton with a sword in the forest, preparing to attack. He shouts, "Hey!" with a look of rage and tension on his face. He orders an attack from the blind spot, noticing that the enemy repeats the same actions while the creature with red eyes is standing next to him. He said irritably that the situation was very annoying, standing on the grass in his boots by the sword. A skeleton with blue eyes and a sword shines in the forest, surrounded by glowing sparks. He thinks about the guy with surprise and embarrassment, noticing him all of a sudden. A skeleton with a sword suddenly attacks the beast, and a man in armor is watching what is happening. A skeleton with glowing eyes raises its sword, preparing to attack, while its bony arm is extended forward. It hit the metal surface hard, causing a bright light and leaves to fly around. One of the warriors attacks a large bear, which deflects the blow while the other stands in front of it, watching the fight. He abruptly grabbed the other's face, an expression of intense tension and pain. Someone shouts, "Idiot!" against the sky with the flying silhouette of a dragon. 3 skeletons with blue glowing eyes look forward. One of them sweats slightly and holds his head in his hands. He stands in front of 3 skeletons and asks if they have brains. 2 skeletons cover their ears, reacting to a loud sound coming from the forest. 3 skeletons with blue eyes react in surprise to something, expressing bewilderment. He closes his eyes and touches his head, feeling the effect of the ruined tracker on the necklace. He is standing in front of a huge monster. Bones and remains are scattered around, creating a tense atmosphere before the fight. He put his hands on his head with a smirk, expressing confidence and inner satisfaction. He suddenly raised his sword in front of the 3 skeletons with blue eyes that express surprise. He informs the skeletons that they are at Bangsu Castle while they are walking through the forest. 3 skeletons with glowing eyes run through the forest, making sounds like ek. He thinks with a smile that he can't avoid having to be on the front line. He stands in the woods, watching 3 skeletons dance against the trees in the sunlight. A group of people enter the building of the Raider Association in Bangsu Castle, against the backdrop of ancient houses and a tower under a clear sky. He stands with his arms crossed on the stairs, while the others relax and socialize in the tavern, creating a lively atmosphere. He stands with his arms crossed as the other approaches from the dark hallway, and the sound of footsteps is heard. He shouts that the enemy is out of the fight, while the others react with alarm to what is happening. A group of people try to grab a man with white hair, demanding to know what task he received. He grabs another one in a panic as a hooded figure enters the room. He turned up his collar and covered his nose, preparing for action or hiding his face, and he blames the group for not even trying to work hard on their own, causing them surprise and dissatisfaction. He said with a displeased expression that they only want to parasitize other people. A man with a happy expression tries to talk to the hood, who coldly responds with a message to go away. The hooded man quickly climbs the stairs, and the other man asks in shock what's going on. He holds out a sealed envelope with a red seal. He's on the stairs reading a note, and a man in a raincoat is reaching for him as a group of armored men watch from below. He orders them to get up, but the other one says they don't, while a group of people with frightened faces try to break through to them. The hooded figure walks confidently forward, making quick footsteps. He reflects on what reward Ahimbri has in store for him and hopes it will be a good one, as it is a hidden quest. He is hooded outside the door, thinking about the intention of building a long-term relationship with someone. He looks at the huge pile of books and says it's very dirty and messy. He noticed another man in the room with a lot of books, who seemed tired and put his head down on the table. He studies the book carefully, taking off his glasses and immersing himself in reading among the many other volumes. He reads the letter, and she smiles and laughs, expressing joy. He is concentrating on activating the magical energy coming from his arm and chest. He has received 2 skill scrolls, Bone Armor and Helmet of Madness, and looks at them in surprise. The hooded man enthusiastically says that the item looks very rare, and thanks the other man, partially visible in the foreground. He turned abruptly and shouted, while the other silently watched among the tall stacks of books in the room. He asks for the next task in surprise, complaining that the current one ended too quickly. He stands with his back to the huge piles of books, and someone calls out to him, "Sir!" He falls down, trying to grab something, a look of horror on his face. He asks the other if he's ready to do anything while they're holding hands among the stacks of books. With a mad smile, he grabbed the other's hand and said that he now belonged to him forever. The image shows an egg with a question mark on the background of dark space, symbolizing a mystery or the unknown. He's wearing a hood, screaming in horror, sweating, and bright flashes are flashing in the background. He stares straight ahead, and there's a loud sound all around him. The people in the corridor are looking with surprise and wariness at the armored warrior, who suddenly appeared in front of them. A group of armored men watch in surprise at someone who has just entered, and one of them exclaims, "Whoa!" He stands in a meadow in front of an ancient building with a tower, watching 2 knights talking and passers-by against the background of mountains. He stares intently, his eye glowing green through the metal mask. He stands in heavy armor against the sunset, radiating power and determination. He is standing in front of a closed door in a dark room. The sound of the door opening is heard. He is aware with his eyes closed that it is possible to be deceived by an NPC by expressing surprise and disappointment. He wonders why, instead of the main mission, he was given a task with an egg. He has a hood over his head and speaks with fatigue and tears on his face. He asked in surprise about the quest, expressing doubt and bewilderment. He lies with his eyes wide open, and sweat accumulates on his face, expressing anxiety or fear. Several men attack the man with white hair, shouting that he has received a mission and demand to capture him. He looks up in fright, trying to fend off the attacker who is standing over him. He anxiously asks if it's really necessary to just kill them. He falls backwards in a panic, trying to fend off an armored attacker who screams and strikes. He sits on the floor and looks anxiously at the approaching booted foot that steps next to him. He in armor says he would like to talk somewhere quiet. He looks at the reflection in the mirror, where the silhouette of another person is visible. He looks at the enemy with tension and prepares to attack, showing determination and tension in battle. He looks at the other person with determination, preparing for an important conversation or action. He looks away thoughtfully, lost in thought. 2 people meet in a narrow alley of a medieval city, one in armor with a cloak, the other in a gray hood. He looks seriously at the armored man who is talking in the industrial area. He presses a button on his wrist device, preparing for action. He talks intently about what is happening around them, while a blue energy effect appears around his head. He thinks that this person's equipment should be at least a ranker. He adjusted his glasses and began to speak to the other man. He gives his shirt a sharp tug, making the sound of cloth moving. He asks what they were talking about, and the other asks in surprise, not hearing them. He's on the phone, touching his face nervously with a metal hand. The hooded man suddenly leaned toward the other, who was surprised by his behavior. He expresses rage and shows his middle fingers in response to something. He stands in the dark, looking ahead confidently, the reflection of the light obscuring his eyes, creating a tense atmosphere. The image shows a metal hand reaching out, creating a sense of movement or invitation. He apologizes, admitting that he made a mistake, and stretches out his hand in front of the city buildings. The two men shake hands firmly, expressing determination and mutual agreement. He says he forgives him this time and leaves without turning around. He stands in his armor and says nothing, staring intently ahead in the darkened room. He asks if this is what he's holding in his hands, as the dark hooded figure watches him. He looks anxiously at his metal hand, which begins to make strange sounds and vibrate. He throws the paper away in his armor, and she covers her face with her hand, expressing disappointment or fatigue. He adjusts his glasses with a metal hand and looks ahead intently. He said wearily that he was going back to his position, standing on the street between the houses. From the window, the doors suddenly swing open, drawing attention to what is happening inside. He looks through the crack in the door, his expression wary and focused. He thinks in his armor that if they were from an ordinary guild, they would have made a deal by introducing themselves, and she is standing next to him, hiding her face. He's wearing armor and glasses and thinks that the opponents are obviously not ordinary people to test him in this way. He looks away with a serious expression, illuminated by the light from the window. The image shows a landscape with mountains and forest under a clear sky, with no visible characters or dialogues. He is sitting on a tree stump in the forest, hands clasped over his face, while two skeletons with swords fight in front of him. He looks ahead thoughtfully, hands clasped over his mouth, as if preparing for an important decision. He watches the man in the raincoat walk away down the narrow street, raising his hand as if to say goodbye or show something. He is leaning against a tree, talking thoughtfully about how someone is about to attack them. With a grin and a tear in his eye, he asks why madmen keep destroying things. She says she can handle it on her own. Looking down, she encourages her companion with a smile, saying that it's time to work. She abruptly throws the bottle in the direction of the woman sitting in the capsule, who cannot defend herself. One hand abruptly reaches for the bottle of liquid that the other is holding, causing a tense reaction. He looks at her anxiously as she quickly drinks from the bottle, making a loud sound. The hand squeezes and tears the paper bundle with force, causing a tense atmosphere. She clutches the rag tightly in her hand, tears streaming down her face, her expression showing fear and determination. She leaves, and he stands by the piano and tells her to come back when she understands. She abruptly raised her hand, making a loud noise. He is leaning forward, shouting at the person opposite, expressing great annoyance. She looks back with a smile, playing with her hair and holding up the collar of her shirt. The image shows a close-up of a belly in black clothing against a framed wall background. He noticed her body in surprise, covering his mouth with his hands. She is shocked and screams, expressing strong surprise and fear. He quickly moves away from the sarcophagus in the dark-walled room, not saying a word. He hides in the water and starts saying that it's been a long time. He stands in a swamp with two skeletons behind him, saying the word swamp. He says that a Himbri is currently in Bangsu Castle, and the quest should take place in this region. The image shows a forest with large rocks covered with moss and dense trees, but the characters are not visible. He summoned the skeleton, telling it to come over, while activating the skill window on his wrist. He orders the helmet to be turned on, and the one with the bright red eyes comes to life. He looks in surprise at the skeleton surrounded by red energy that suddenly appeared in front of him. He was surprised to see that the creature now had horns and was making a vicious sound. He is standing in the forest with a sword on his back, learning the skill Madness Helm, and a skeleton with a red glow next to it is preparing to activate the spell. He grits his teeth and makes a growling sound, expressing anger and tension. A skeleton with burning eyes screams and stretches out its hand, emitting a bright red energy. He looks anxiously at his hand, which is starting to get covered in a strange red energy. He delivers a powerful punch to a masked opponent surrounded by red light. He raises his hand, and the three skeletons watch as one of them falls backward, and an eyeball rolls nearby. He indignantly asked how the other could have shouted at him while the skeleton was lying on the ground and the third was watching anxiously. He looks thoughtfully at the device and asks if this is some kind of bug. He is standing at the edge of the water pit. A skeleton is lying next to him, and a strange sound is heard from the depths. In front of the hooded hero at level 30, several aggressive lizard-like creatures with red eyes suddenly attack. He starts talking in the woods, saying the word, "well." The hero activated the Helmet of Madness, which increases the summoning stats by 1.2 times. By saying the command Helmet On, the character activates the Bone Armor spell to equip the creature's summoned breastplate. A skeleton with glowing red eyes fires a powerful energy shot, surrounded by a fiery aura and an ominous atmosphere. Three red-eyed dragons growl and stare intently ahead, preparing for the upcoming battle. He stands in the forest and orders his skeletons to attack, saying, "Go ahead, attack." A skeleton with red eyes fights two green monsters, delivering a powerful blow accompanied by a bright flash and red energy effects. A man with a skull on his face screams furiously and attacks a huge dragon with red eyes. He is in the form of a skeleton with a burning skull and deals a powerful blow to the dragon with red eyes, causing an explosion and blood. A level up message appears on the screen, repeated twice. He stands in front of burning skeletons surrounded by red flames, while they are attacked by a huge green monster with red eyes. He laughs and blushes, clearly experiencing strong emotions. Three skeletons with glowing eyes swiftly attack, surrounded by sinister red energy. She watches from the trees as the hooded man talks to the three skeletons in the forest, not saying a word. Ilya introduced herself as she stood in the background of trees and falling petals. She looks up through the leaves and says that the situation is clear. Ilya is sitting on a throne, and there are many people around her, calling her name in delight and expressing delight. She smiled and explained that this was why her life was so easy. He abruptly puts his foot on the ground, creating a sense of strength and determination. She falls violently to the ground, creating an explosion of green energy around her. He can barely contain his anger and says that he hates this stupid place, clenching his fist and getting covered in mud. He enthusiastically told her to just follow him, and she looked at him with admiration. She called out the name of the fallen man in the swamp, trying to help him out. He fights with three creatures, thinking about who can be tricked, and then is surprised by what he hears. She tears the fabric with a grin, showing determination and strength in a tense situation. He whirled around at the loud sound behind him, listening intently. He sees armored women approaching, one of whom falls to the ground as she tries to get up. She looks thoughtfully ahead, surrounded by flowers and radiance, expressing deep feelings and inner experiences. She watches the swordsman and the three skeletons walk away into the forest, their footsteps echoing down the path. She screams furiously, not believing that anyone is going to leave. She exclaims, trying to attract the attention of the necromancer, who calmly responds to her appeal. She gritted her teeth, expressing determination and tension in the moment. She's got blood coming out of her mouth, and she's looking at me with fury and tension, as if she's preparing for a decisive action or battle. Several warriors are fighting the monster, and one stands to the side and shouts, calling for battle. He stands quietly in the forest, covering his face with his hand, while a huge dragon and a glowing skeleton with a spear appear next to him. He looks ahead warily, and she laughs softly, covering her mouth with her hand. He watches a woman lying on the ground, panting, trying to recover in the woods. She asks for help, and he leaves irritably, ignoring her words. He expressed annoyance, saying that if someone is in the game, they should play fair, and another asked if he was joking. He holds back his emotions with a hood pulled over his head, and the three people behind him give a thumbs up and smile approvingly. He asks in surprise, and she responds with a small smile. He asks her to help return something while standing in the woods opposite her. She laughs, clutching the other man's head as he tries to break free of her grip. She has a creepy smile on her face and wide eyes as she looks thoughtfully ahead, one hand resting on her chin against a red patterned background. In the forest, on a small island in the water, A sword that plunges into the ground glows, surrounded by a mysterious light. She reminds him to remember to leave after fulfilling his promise as they walk together with the three skeletons through the forest. He exhales with his eyes closed, as if preparing for an important event. Three skeletons are carrying one of their own, who waves his hand in exasperation, and in the forest ahead, you can see a sword sticking into the ground. She thanks him by saying, "Thank you so much," while he looks away. She looks at the glowing object with a crazy smile and makes an ominous sound. A dark warrior with a sword on his back turns sharply, reacting to a sudden attack. He shouts, "Die!" and strikes a powerful blow. He said with a grin that the opponent was too slow, expressing confidence in his own speed and superiority. He violently grabs the other man by the neck, causing him to be startled and tense. The dark silhouette abruptly attacks the armored figure, who flies back with a cry. It abruptly fends off the attack, creating a powerful burst of water in the dark night environment. He stands in the forest next to the three skeletons, watching the powerful green burst of energy ahead. He watches as she comes screaming out of the water and swears at him. She screams in a panic that her bodyguards are there. The text breaks. The full phrase is unknown. He smiles and covers his mouth with his hand, pointing TE wait sign with his index finger. She abruptly grabbed the other person's arm, expressing determination and tension in the water. She is standing in the water facing three vicious snake-like creatures with glowing red eyes and open mouths. She screams in fear as two dragons attack, and in the distance, a masked man stands next to three skeletons and warns of fraud. He teases the other person by sticking out his tongue and pointing at the eye, expressing a playful mood. He, with a sword on his back, says irritably that he is wasting his time by addressing another hooded character. He watches as one of the three skeletons sheepishly shows off a bone, drawing laughter from the others. He threatens to kill while walking through the forest, followed by three skeletons with blue eyes. He wonders what's going on, looking at the glowing arrows around him. She screams that he will not be able to get away with such an act. He smiles with his eyes closed, as if satisfied or confident. Three men wearing heart-shaped armbands carefully study a hologram of a warrior and three skeletons in a forest. In the forest, you can hear sounds like someone or something is moving among the trees and leaves. He threatens the man on his knees with a sword and says that he must take revenge on Ilya's enemy, and behind him are three skeletons. He looks down with a serious expression on his face, as if preparing for an important event or conversation. He is holding a gun and asks the other man why he is following her so far, with skeletons in the background. He's got blood on his lips and a pair of mirrored glasses, and he's smiling hard, as if he's preparing for a decisive action. He enthusiastically and passionately explains that he loves her. He raised his sword with energy, and the person sitting below was surprised and said, in the background of the three skeletons. He said irritably that it was ridiculous. He looks at the glowing object in his hand with a crazy smile, making an ominous sound. He notices three women in armor, one of whom falls, and keeps a close eye on what is happening in the cave. He grabbed the other man by the throat and threw him sharply to the side, demonstrating strength and aggression in battle. She screams in panic, trying to get out of the water, overcome with fear and despair. She knelt down and covered her face with her hands, admitting that she was very sad, and three men with blindfolds watched her. She tearfully explains that she was just asking for help, but the necromancer suddenly attacked her. Three men with bandages on their foreheads express fear and despair. Their faces are distorted with emotions, and one of them is crying. He noticed Ilya's enemy and announced his presence in the forest loudly. He smiles and says, "Ha!" while adjusting the hood on his head. He crouched down in the forest and picked up a watch from the ground with the words, "You have received Orphan Battle Watch," written on it. He carefully examines the smartwatch, which displays digital symbols and holographic effects. With a smile, he offers to join in the worship of the goddess, standing with his hands raised next to the three skeletons, who also raise their hands in the air. He happily thinks that he will finally be able to have dinner, when the other suddenly exclaims and runs towards him in the woods. He stretches out his hand with a smirk, radiating confidence and defiance. A group of armed fighters carefully move through the dark tunnel, preparing for possible danger ahead. He runs away in a panic from a lot of skeletons, and a group of people with shining eyes notices them and is amazed at their number. He anxiously asks how many of them are there. He wonders why so many people are obsessed with this woman. He runs in a panic from the crowd with red eyes and skeletons, and a woman with long hair smiles ominously and watches them. He raises his two-fingered hand in concentration, preparing for action, expressing determination and tension. He screams about skeletons and stabs one of them. Skeletons with burning eyes rapidly attack, creating a tense and dangerous atmosphere. Two men in armbands with hearts are concentrating on preparing for action, feeling the tension of the moment. The image shows the moment when the skull and bones fly into the air with the effect of the EPOW sound. He is wearing armor and holding a sword to deflect the skeleton's attacks, surrounded by hearts and radiance, as if expressing his love for battle. The hooded man exclaimed that such a skill didn't exist. He is tensely aware that the opponents he is facing are clearly above his level. He declares that all enemies will die when he levels up, and abruptly jumps forward while the two watch him. He is breathing heavily and leaning against a tree in the dark forest, clearly feeling tired or in pain. He thinks that because of the low level, it is difficult to get rid of the pursuers, so he decides to continue driving. He stands in the woods and turns around, as if he's heard something behind him. He noted thoughtfully that he didn't remember such a place in Frog Swamp and had been looking for it for several days. He looks ahead with a slight smile, hiding under the hood. A group of men are walking through the forest, and one of them scolds the necromancer. He points abruptly forward, and another with a heart-shaped patch on his forehead warily reacts to his sudden movement. The skeleton started dancing to the light of the disco ball, accompanied by sounds and energy coming from the dark space. Two men wearing bandages with hearts are startled by the appearance of skeletons that start clapping their hands. He pulls the chains away with an effort, and she watches him in surprise. He rushes to attack the skeletons, and someone from afar shouts that he will forgive him. He and the three skeletons watch as a huge monster with red eyes bursts through the ground with a growl. He looks up with tension and fear, trying to hold on to the edge. He throws a powerful kick at the opponent, who tries to defend himself, making screams of pain. Two men with bandages on their foreheads look forward in horror, and one of them begins to speak, expressing shock and confusion. He exclaimed, as he noticed a level 40 dragon lizard standing menacingly in front of them. He is silent, and a group of people with a sword demands to stop the action. He hides behind a tree and looks back with a grin, a drop of sweat dripping from his face. The image shows a boss monster with overwhelming defense, health, and attack, which is described in the text. A warrior with a sword and shield fights a dragon, raising his weapon to strike, surrounded by other fighters and ruins. The image shows an inscription against a background of red smears, indicating that someone was barely able to track down their target. He's watching intently, concentrating on something important. He walks on a dark surface. A hologram appears in front of him with the task of finding an egg from the nest. He looks confidently ahead, surrounded by glowing digital elements, as if preparing for an important event. He sits by a tree in thought, surrounded by flying skulls, and considers the situation. A man with glasses apologizes, and another in a hood gets angry and is going to hit him. Two men with bandages on their foreheads are sitting on the ground in the dark, and one says that we need to move on, despite being tired. He shouts that we need to retreat, and the other agrees tensely, both wearing bandages with hearts on their foreheads. With a grin, he warned them not to do that, snapping his fingers and causing a red glow. The three warriors with weapons in their hands look in surprise at the fiery skeleton that has appeared in front of them. He noticed that they were being blocked, and three skeletons with glowing red eyes and horns were approaching them menacingly. He shouts and strikes hard at the opponent. He tries to stop the huge dragon's attack, while the other one watches from behind. In a panic, he warns about the approach of the attacker, who is rushing towards them in the forest. He thanks his comrades and promises not to forget their sacrifices, as he runs away from the pursuing men with guns. He says with determination that the time has come, preparing for action. He quickly sneaks into an empty nest to rob it. He delivers a powerful blow with his sword, cutting through the space around him in the destroyed room. He turns with a grin, as if preparing for an action or response. He smiles discreetly, making a sound of surprise or confusion. The image shows a collapse of trees and rocks, creating a blockage in the forest, without visible characters. He is wearing a hood and carrying a sword on his back, moving quickly through the forest, preparing for the upcoming battle. The three hooded figures struggle out of the hole, bracing themselves for the impending danger. He holds in his hand a cracked stone with a glowing purple symbol that emits smoke. He looks anxiously at the bundle in his hands, feeling tense and uneasy inside. He carefully examines the stone from which the dark smoke emanates, trying to understand its nature. He stares ahead tensely as a message about the destruction of the skeleton warrior appears on the screen. He stands in a dark room with a rock in his hand and turns around when he hears a sound from behind. A huge creature with glowing red eyes quickly bursts out of the water, causing a storm and destruction around. A huge dragon roars, destroying the building, and a man with a sword in his hands tries to evade the attack. He thinks that because of the dragon lizard's return, he can't search the nest again, hearing hissing sounds all around. He anxiously decided that he had no choice but to take this item with him, even though it wasn't an egg. He has folded his hands in thought and is looking ahead intently, deep in thought. The image shows a mysterious egg with a question mark on a dark background, creating an atmosphere of mystery and expectation. In the forest, two people are lying on the ground. One is sitting, and the other is unconscious. The wind is rustling around. The image shows a deep ravine with rocks and creepers growing on them, but the characters are missing. He is lying on the ground with a tense expression on his face, looking at the person standing next to him. He looks ahead with a smile, holding the sword on his back against the setting sun. He is lying on the ground with a wound on his face, and the other hand with a knife is approaching his fingers, causing him to react in a frightened way. He screams in panic as the sword plunges in nearby, causing an explosion and a bright light. He stares with rage and madness, reflected in the blade of the sword that glints in the light. He lies on the ground with difficulty, trying to get up, and the other threatens him with a sword, not giving him a chance to escape. He warns that he won't get off so easily next time. He is lying on the ground in tears and fear, and another person is standing next to him, creating a tense and threatening atmosphere. He quickly attacks two opponents, who in response make sounds of pain. He walks through the forest, listening intently to the sounds around him and thinking about what is happening. He asks if the Bangsu Guild is here, and reports that he has spotted a dragon lizard in the swamp, offering to sell the exact location for 100,000 gold. He carefully picks up a cracked stone ball against the background of the stacks of books in the library. The hooded figure nervously picked up an item from the table, while the other was looking at it carefully across the table, surrounded by books and scrolls. He looks around anxiously, feeling tense and sweaty, as if something is threatening him. He thinks irritably that he doesn't want to search the map again, and looks carefully at the big cracked rock. He is anxiously aware that something unusual is happening, expressing surprise and tension. He is shocked and tense, and his eyes are wide, showing great fear or surprise. The hooded man is surprised when another man with a beard and glasses places a strange stone on the table. He exclaims happily that he got it right, and clenches his fist in victory. He holds the item with a grin and accuses the other person of knowing the truth, and giving him the task anyway, calling him a strange NPC. With a grin, he asked the bespectacled man if he was ready for the next task while holding a strange rock in his hands. He jerked his head around, noticing something unexpected next to his ear. He explains that this item was always found by addressing the other man in the room. He clenches his hand into a fist, ready for action. He is in armor preparing for battle, and she is in a dark hood standing with her back to him, creating a tense atmosphere before the battle. The image shows a cracked black stone with a purple symbol, surrounded by a mystical light on a purple background. He's in armor, adjusting his glasses as he addresses the other man, who is standing in front of him in dark hooded clothing. The image shows an egg with a question mark surrounded by a glowing halo on a dark background. He is surprised that this turned out to be the main task. He listens sharply, expressing surprise and tension. He carefully examines the object in his hand and reflects on its meaning. He asks, with a serious expression, if the other person is ready for the upcoming event. He's wearing a hood over his head and clenching his fist, radiating tension and determination. He claps his hands angrily and laughs, expressing gloating or ridicule. He shouts with rage, and another, embarrassed, apologizes, while the third watches them with a serious look. He tries to protest in a panic, shouting, "But He throws up his hands in surprise and laughter, expressing complete bewilderment and amazement. He's standing in front of a closed door, wearing a hooded raincoat, and there are signs of a recent blow around it. He gains the title Ahimbri Disciple and begins the quest Ahimbri Teachings 2, with the task to return to Ahimbri after reaching level 40. One man shyly asks to see him, and another loudly replies that he can't hear, while a third clenches his fist furiously. A red-eyed fire dragon roars, surrounded by flames and smoke. A group of warriors rejoices at the victory over the burnt dragon. One of them says that the work was done well, the other notes that everything is finally over. Two warriors shake hands, and one agrees with the other, saying that he is right. They thank the other person for their help, expressing their sincere appreciation. He is standing in the forest in armor, wiping his hands with a cloth, preparing for something important. He adjusts his glasses with a metal hand and looks ahead intently. He laughs and says that at first he was skeptical, and the other listens to him, standing by the bush. He holds out the bag and says it's not much, offering something to the other person. He offers compensation with a smile, holding out a pouch, and the other one in armor listens intently. He pushes up his glasses and looks ahead with determination against the starry sky. He holds the bag in surprise and wonders to himself what's going on. They discuss a low-level assault. One wonders who this person is, and the other declares that he will take something. The armored man exclaimed when he saw that the other two were in the forest, one of them lying down and the other supporting him. He moves forward in concentration, making rapid footsteps. He is serious and thinks that he never expected to get the opportunity to get the Stone of Corruption. He strikes a powerful blow with his sword, creating a bright light trail in the dark. He was nervous that Hanho Mask was already completing the mission, but he calmed down after learning that the dragon lizard was still alive. He landed on the ground after jumping among the sharp rocks and started thinking about defeating the boss monster. He adjusts his glasses with a metal hand and smiles with confidence. A strange sound is heard in the dark tunnel of branches, but the characters are not visible and do not speak. He stands alone in the clearing, looking back at the ruined place around him. He's holding a metal hand tightly to his face, clearly feeling a lot of stress or pain. It shows a moment of rapid movement or flight through a natural landscape with an arch of trees against the sky and birds. He covers his face with his hands in frustration, while the other lies on the floor with his fist clenched, expressing a strong inner tension. He abruptly clenches his fist and delivers a powerful punch. He speaks with determination, clenching his fist, expressing readiness for action or struggle. He waves happily with his phone in his hand, and the other hand is also holding the device from behind, as if inviting you to join in the fun. He quickly types on his phone with a smile and excitement, expressing joy and excitement. He saw in the transaction history a deposit of 1,200,144 won and a total balance of 1,400,856 won. He is in shock, holding his head, blood coming out of his mouth, and an inscription appears above him about winning a balance of 856, and he exclaims in despair that he has no money at all. He looks anxiously at the phone that has suddenly started vibrating in his hand. He snatched up the phone abruptly, making a clicking sound. He's watching intently, and the two people in the background are watching him, creating an atmosphere of tension and expectation. He wonders if he should be wary of others when he's almost starving to death, and considers himself an innocent gamer just enjoying the game. He clenches his fist and expresses anger as he stands in front of the red wall. At night, a gravestone with a cross and an image of a rose stands in the cemetery among gloomy trees. Two ravens with red eyes sit on a branch at night and make loud calls. He is surrounded by glowing skeletons in a gloomy forest, preparing to fight or defend against them. He is wearing a hood with glowing eyes and a mask on his face, smiling while making an ominous sound. He stands in a dark forest, surrounded by glowing skeletons, and is silent, creating an ominous atmosphere. He is hooded with a mask on his face, surrounded by skeletons in a dark forest, and expresses surprise. He meets three skeletons with glowing eyes in a dark forest, who are watching him closely and discussing something. He laughs sheepishly, fingers clenched, and there's a picture of a frightened man in the corner. He clutches his head and cries, hiding his face under the hood. A group of 4 people, including skeletons, Watch as a huge skeletal arm bursts out of the ground with a red glow. 2 skeletons are lying on the ground, dripping blood, and an ominous red light is spreading around them. The skeleton suddenly comes to life and makes sounds, causing the observer surprise and bewilderment. The skeletons are confused as they try to figure out why a white skull isn't equal to a red one, and a masked man is watching them. He is wearing a mask with sharp teeth and a hood, saying that he is not going to stop there. 3 skeletons react in horror to something. One of them lets out a loud scream. He makes a noise as he notices 2 skeletons rising from the ground in the gloomy graveyard. He notices several skeletons hiding behind trees and gravestones in the cemetery, preparing for an unexpected encounter. He rubs his head in exasperation, and the other hand points to his face, expressing displeasure. He shoots a skeleton that falls down, and a cloaked figure stands nearby with 2 skeletons on his back. 3 skeletons stand against a gloomy sky. One of them turns to the other, expressing alarm or surprise. He delivers a powerful blow with his glowing sword, shattering the rubble around him. 2 skeletons meet at night. One of them is partially destroyed and makes sounds. The skeleton is horrified to see another skeleton approaching with an aggressive expression and an outstretched hand. He watches as the skeleton kicks out, confirming his words. He stretches out his hand, summoning a glowing blue object that begins to materialize in the air. He fights in a mask, delivering powerful blows with his staff at skeletal enemies with red glowing eyes. He stands with a shovel in the cemetery, and the skeleton next to it crumbles, causing him surprise. He looks anxiously at the 3 skeletons, who seem to be scared and holding their heads. He orders the killing of 100 skeletons while standing in front of a group of skeletons and a cloaked man in a graveyard at night. He looks at the figure in the shadows with a red glow, surrounded by skeletons and a dark atmosphere, with a malicious smile. 2 skeletons with blue glowing eyes suddenly appear and make a sound of surprise or fright. He killed the skeleton, and a victory notification appeared on the screen. He stands among the animated skeletons and says that the situation is excellent, holding a large hammer in his hands. He smiles with a mask on his face and thinks that it took them less time to master the new weapon than he expected. He is horrified and shocked. His eyes are wide open, expressing intense fear and tension. It attacks powerfully, destroying the ground under your foot and causing an explosive wave. He faces a level 35 skeleton warrior surrounded by ominous red light and smoke. The hooded man explains in dismay that he has met a rare skeleton warrior who appears by chance. A skull wearing the same helmet appears in front of the horned helmet, making ominous sounds. The cow makes a sound, attracting the attention of another animal, whose gaze is directed at it from above. A man with white hair and 3 skeletons with glowing eyes swiftly attack the other, who is watching them with tension. Wearing a mask and dark clothing, he quickly moves forward, preparing for action, accompanying the movement with sounds. He dodges a powerful blow, accompanied by a sound, and expresses surprise. They watch as a powerful punch breaks through the enemy's defenses, causing an explosion and destruction all around. He leaps swiftly at the group of skeletons, causing a massive explosion that rips the ground in front of them. He clenches his teeth tightly, feeling the impact that pierces through his body. A skeleton in armor with red eyes breaks a wooden weapon, making a sound of destruction that causes surprise to the observer. He stands with a spear, preparing to attack, while a huge skeleton with burning eyes and armor strikes a powerful blow from above. A warrior in armor repels the attack of a group of enemies who quickly attack him with weapons. He smiles and delivers a powerful hammer blow at the advancing skeletons with blue glowing eyes. He attacks 3 skeletons with a hammer, delivering a powerful blow in the dark forest at night. He stands in a hood next to 3 glowing skeletons, who greet him by raising their hands to their heads. He stands next to a demon with glowing eyes that radiates a sinister energy. He stands with a hammer, watching the approaching fire object, and 3 skeletons stand nearby. He says with a smile on his face that someone is too impatient. A mysterious hooded character prepares a fire spell, and a creature with a red eye notices it and reacts with surprise. A dark hooded skeleton with glowing eyes invokes fire magic, surrounded by flames and mystical symbols. A dark-robed mage summons a fireball, preparing to attack. An armored warrior falls through a fiery explosion, followed by a loud explosion sound. He received notifications that he had killed a skeleton warrior and gained experience points. He stands in front of the fire and lets out a sigh of relief after a tense moment. He and 3 skeletons watch as a skeleton burns down in the fire, while another character stands on a raised platform. He is masked and hooded, touching his chin thoughtfully, and behind him are 2 skeletons with spears. A message appears on the screen that the field boss has discovered the death of his subordinate. He reacts with surprise to the message that the field boss has discovered intruders. The image shows a glowing energy circle radiating power and light in a dark space. A warning appears about the awakening of the field boss, and he and 3 small creatures look at the glowing magic circle. He intently chants a spell, creating a glowing magic circle around him and radiating powerful energy. A great skeleton in a crown summons magical energy, and 3 warriors with weapons watch it with determination. He smiles and says that now he can live in spite of what is happening around him. A level 40 golden skeleton exclaims in rage, "What?" In a moment of intense conflict, a boss monster from the Forest of the Dead appeared, surrounded by a glowing halo and skulls on armor. Several bodies lie on the ground in a pool of blood, and one man stands with a gun, surrounded by darkness and signs of a struggle. He's wearing a hooded mask, smiling and sweating as if he's stressed or excited. He is masked and hooded, shouting that they are skeletons at the moment of a powerful blow to the ground. He stands in a fighting stance, his eye glowing as dust and smoke from the recent explosion billows around him. He's wearing a mask and looking forward with an expression of horror and tension, as if he's faced with something unexpected and frightening. He stands with his hands behind his head, surrounded by glowing skeletons that create a tense and menacing atmosphere around him. He stands on the edge of a cliff, watching the spiraling light coming from below, accompanied by the sound of the wind. He thinks he already knows how to fully power up his skeletons and somehow handle the task. The hooded man lifts the mask on his face, looking ahead intently. He stands in front of a huge, glowing skeleton wearing a crown, which folds its hands in prayer, creating an atmosphere of intense expectation. He smiles with a mask on his face and squeezes his watch hand, radiating confidence and strength. He gritted his teeth, expressing determination and tension in the moment. With white hair and glowing eyes, he strikes a powerful blow with a sword shrouded in blue flames, preparing to attack. 2 masked characters, one with a golden skull, the other with a black mask, exchange intense gazes and energy flows. The dark warrior plummets towards the crowned skeleton, ready to defend himself with his hands clasped in prayer. A skeleton wearing a crown summons a powerful magic spell surrounded by bright lights and symbols. A dark skeleton wearing a crown folds its arms in concentration, surrounded by a bright magical glow and lightning bolts. The image shows a powerful explosion with bright light rays and flying fragments. He falls from a great height, surrounded by dark energy and with a spear in his hand. He explains with a smile that one punch will kill him, despite the tension of the situation. A skeleton in armor creates a magical shield of glowing symbols, deflecting an attack in a dark space. It shows a dynamic scene with the effect of movement and the sound of impact, but the characters are not visible. A warrior in dark armor with a hammer leaps forward to attack, and a skeleton arm is raised in front of him to defend. The image shows a powerful energy explosion destroying the stone surface, with no visible characters. He fights a huge skeleton in golden armor that emits a bright light and attacks him with force. Wearing a skull helmet, he notices a sudden bright glow and an explosion of magical energy in front of him. A skeleton in armor asks if this is related to spells, while the dark warrior prepares to attack with a huge weapon. He's smiling, his eyes are glowing, and dark energy is pulsing around him. He stands in the dark, surrounded by blue light, and begins to speak, saying the word, "Then." A huge skeleton with glowing eyes emits light and makes sounds, while someone is silent, watching it. The field boss stares at him intently, causing tension and fear. Messages appear, stating that the field boss has successfully recognized and evaluated the player's skill level. 2 skeletal hands touch in a gesture accompanied by the sound of impact. He stands in front of a skeletal creature wearing a crown, surrounded by magical energy and a glowing symbol, preparing for battle or challenge. He is wearing a mask and a dark suit, and exclaims in surprise, not understanding what is happening around him. It releases a powerful purple energy beam, destroying the surrounding landscape and creating a blast wave. He fiercely strikes a powerful blow, destroying the surrounding rocks and causing a purple glow. He exclaims in horror, spear in hand, when faced with a powerful bright energy strike. He cursed as he faced the unexpected attack, surrounded by dark energy and glowing purple light. It warns that something is catching up with it. He looks at something with horror, feeling a strong tension and fear. The image shows a powerful explosion with bright purple flashes and flying fragments. He with white hair falls with force, surrounded by an explosion and debris. He receives a powerful blow, knocking him back to the ground in the bleak night environment. He is white-haired and covered in shadows, struggling to get up from the ground amid the destruction and dark smoke. He shouts furiously, showing off the jagged mask on his face and expressing determination in battles. He's amazed that he can't remember the crazy pattern as he watches the destruction and purple light all around him. He strikes a powerful blow with his sword, cutting through the air and creating a vortex of energy around him. The image discusses whether the golden skeleton had a hidden pattern or a balanced patch like the Minotaur's. With his white hair and black mask, he smiles, radiating an ominous energy and confidence in his strength. He grips the hilt of his weapon tightly, preparing for action in a tense environment. He stands in front of a huge skeleton wearing a crown surrounded by a magical aura, preparing for battle in a mystical atmosphere. The image shows a powerful explosion or energy release of purple light, covering the space and creating the effect of movement. He stands in the cemetery with a big hammer and says that's so far. He is concentrating on using all his strength, surrounded by a bright purple energy. He fights by releasing powerful purple energy beams that destroy the environment and hit the enemy. The masked white-haired man deals a powerful blow with his staff, causing an explosion of energy and destruction all around. He watches as a bright purple beam of energy pierces through space, accompanied by words about the trajectory. He deflects a massive explosion, thinking that he doesn't have time to counterattack. He is in dark armor with wings and glowing eyes, preparing to attack, surrounded by flying fragments and energy flashes. He has a tense expression on his face, distorted with fear and surprise, as if he has encountered something unexpected and frightening. He fights a shadow creature and experiences pain while making a "oh" sound. A skeleton wearing a crown tries to grab a man with white hair, who abruptly moves away from the grip. The glowing skull makes a loud sound, creating a tense atmosphere in a dark space. He looks ahead with a grin, his eyes shining through the masks, and he seems ready for action. He stands in front of a giant skeleton with a magic circle, thinking that this is a game based on luck. He gritted his teeth and said that he would not give up despite the pain and fatigue. He cast the spell Cast a Curse with shining eyes, surrounded by dark energy and purple shadows. The image shows an ominous glowing skeleton with an open mouth and glowing eyes against a dark background. Someone clenches a fist in the pouring rain, accompanying the action with a sound. He falls from a height surrounded by blue light, heading towards the man in pink who is standing below. He activates the blue fire powers and says that he will take the first strike. He thanks when the blue fire engulfs him, and he feels a lot of pain. He attacks the opponent with a powerful blow, accompanied by a blue energy burst, and shouts "you" at him. The image shows a powerful explosion with bright blue flashes and sound effects, but the characters are not visible. A huge skeleton with a crown emits blue fire from its mouth, destroying the surrounding space. He smiles with bright glowing eyes behind a mask in the dark, radiating confidence and strength. He stands in front of a huge fire skeleton that spews out a powerful attack, causing explosions and destruction all around. He is wearing dark armor with glowing eyes and receives a notification when he gets experience points. He smiles through his mask, surrounded by dark smoke, creating an ominous atmosphere. It activates the ability by emitting dark energy from the face and body, accompanied by the inscription, "Disabling Slot On." The image shows a spectacular visual element labeled "Status," highlighting the change or update of the status. He happily shouts that he has already done it and enthusiastically confirms his achievement. He reflects on how he's managed to keep up until now, thanks to his titles and quick leveling. It shows the process of pouring a blue liquid into a vessel, while he reflects that now his skills are not enough. He stands in the shadows, watching the clouds of smoke coming from afar, his expression cold and focused. He smiles and raises his hand in greeting, expressing friendliness and calmness. He jumps among the graves in the cemetery under the gloomy night sky. He smiles with shining eyes and a mask and declares that the boss is defeated. He's wearing a mask with sharp teeth, looking down in the dark, surrounded by shimmering particles. She sighed tiredly at the computer, expressing frustration and exhaustion. He abruptly clenches his fist and strikes at something or someone. It violently hits something, expressing strong emotions and tension. She happily raises her arms and jumps, while another with the same hair color and glasses expresses excitement while being in a room with computers and a chair. She leaned back cheerfully in a room with a computer and lots of figurines on the shelves. It quickly types on the keyboard, making keystroke sounds. She resolutely declares that she will go along with it. She quickly presses the keys, saying the words of the spell. On the street outside the Raider Guild building, a few people are talking and passing by, creating a lively atmosphere at the castle entrance. He comes back stronger, and the cloaked man with the book turns to face him in a room full of books and artifacts. He laughs and asks who he thinks is guilty, while the other listens gravely. A man with a beard and glasses snaps his fingers, causing a glowing blue object to appear. He watches in surprise as a mystical blue glow and energy begins to radiate from the book in front of him. He explains that this is a very rare necromancer skill that can't be found in the markets. He happily holds a glowing artifact while the other hand is pointed towards him with dark energy. He shows the ring, saying that he used the tainted stone he brought with him. He says to use the power of a corrupt self, while a magic ring glows in the air. He begins to speak with the C sound. He exclaimed in surprise that it was a ruined tracker's ring. He is surprised to see a rare ring that is only given to the first person to complete the main quest line. He lunges forward with a yell, trying to throw a punch, but gets hit back hard in the face. He tries to get the bespectacled man's attention among the many books by asking a question. He looks up in surprise at the man, who turns to face him against the backdrop of tall stacks of books. He says, "Catch me," with a happy expression on his face and clenched fists. He's wearing a hood, smiling and saying something with his eyes closed. He warns with a malicious smile that he will kill as soon as he catches it, surrounded by blue flames and flying papers. He slams his fist down on the table with a smile and energy, scattering papers around. Abruptly, he put his hand to the wall, the ring shining on his finger. He leans against the wall, panting, and doubts that the crazy old man can be a great magician. He tightens his collar and expresses his determination as he prepares for the challenge ahead. He thinks he should level up on the way there by looking at the watch on his hand. He looks at the holographic message that appears from his smartwatch and studies it carefully. Messages with donations and comments appear on the screen, expressing admiration and asking you to accept a friend. He looks in surprise at the holographic screen that appears from the device on his wrist, and intently watches the numbers in the background. He stares in surprise at the glowing holographic screen that appears from the device on his wrist. He looks in surprise at the glowing blue screen in a dark place with stone walls. He sits on the ground between rocks and counts aloud, surprised by the large number of zeros on the device screen. The image shows a piece of steak with the caption "rib eye" on the background of a pink glow. The image shows 2 pieces of meat, and the cloud says that it is filet mignon. The image shows different types of meat and seafood with their names listed in English. He is wearing a hood with shining eyes and tears of joy on his face, expressing strong emotional excitement. With a smirk and a drop of saliva on his lips, he prepares to attack, expressing confidence and gloating. With a smile, he activates the device on his wrist, which emits a ding sound signal. He remembers with annoyance that Choi Sul-young is connected to the Thunder Hunters. She ordered him to join her team, but he refused. As he runs away, a group of people yell for him to join their team, but he refuses. He responded irritably with a rude phrase when asked if they were still doing the same thing. He thought about it and admitted that he thought he had said the same thing before. He says irritably that he doesn't want to hear anymore and asks me to stop talking. He shouts furiously at the campfire, outraged that he refused so many times. He says that the interlocutor is very lucky to be in the forest at night. The 4 men are sitting around a campfire, one of them asking "what?" in surprise, and the other explaining that it makes sense that they're going after someone like Jae-hyun. He tries to laugh it off while the other looks down doubtfully, both of them a little tense and sweating in the woods at night. He says something important with anger, expressing strong emotions under the night sky. He says, "The money will come when they get stronger." He looks away in silence, and the other one tries to say something with his mouth open, but stops talking. He covers his face with his hand, as if trying to hide his emotions or fatigue. He sits on the ground in the gorge and says that it was not necessary to stab him for this, in response to silence. He slapped the other man sharply across the face, forcing him to cover his face with his hand in response. He has wounds on his face and is wearing a hood, holding his head in his hands, expressing tension and fatigue. He slumped to the ground, feeling very tense and tired. He abruptly grabbed the other person's shoulder, expressing determination and tension in the moment. He watches the explosion of bright blue energy radiating from the rock in front of him. Several skeletons with blue light around them appear in the dark, creating an ominous atmosphere. He warns the skeletons with weapons that their leader is dead and they can't fight any further. He stands in the cave and says they need to do something while looking down. Several skeletons are standing in the cave. One of them says that you cannot repeat what they have already done. He speaks with a serious expression, preparing for an important event in a dark hood against the evening sky. He offers something with a smile, and the other one retorts with annoyance, expressing dissatisfaction with the need for action. Several skeletons with different expressions stand together against the sunset. One of them reacts in surprise to what is happening. He smiles with his eyes closed and says something confident against the evening sky. The hero resolutely stated that he wants to become the strongest. He confidently walks forward, surrounded by 4 skeletons, ready to support him in battle. He smiles as he addresses a group of skeletons against a backdrop of sunset and ruins. 4 skeletons look forward in surprise, one of them glowing with blue eyes and a chest bone. With a smile, he creates a glowing sword out of energy, enjoying the process. He smiles and runs with a baton, attacking the frightened skeletons with big eyes. He laughs and asks me to wait for him while the group runs along the mountain path with the castle and sunset sky in the background. She looks away thoughtfully, sitting in her uniform with military badges on her shoulders. She noticed a man in a blue raincoat saying something that surprised her. She is sitting on a dragon and in a cloak with gold trim stands opposite, watching them in a large hall with arched windows. He took off his hood and said thoughtfully that the situation was more complicated than it initially seemed. She asked about the progress of the corrupt count, and he said nothing yet. She looks ahead intently, feeling the tension and preparing for the upcoming event. The hooded man looks away, and she says something with a determined expression, her eyes closed. He says something with his eyes closed, while wearing a blue and yellow hood. As she enters the light gate, she hears someone call her guildmaster. He looks anxiously at the holographic screen that has appeared from the device on his wrist and tensely waits for further instructions. The image shows a variety of types of meat and seafood with captions of their names in English. He exclaims with shining eyes that he can eat any delicious food, expressing joy and delight. A hooded man stands confidently in the front, followed by 4 skeletons with different decorations and glowing eyes. He anxiously says that he can't understand why someone would want to kill him. He hands over the money and asks if everything is okay between them now. 3 ancient books glow with a blue light and float in the air, surrounded by magical energy. He smiles with his eyes closed, wears a hood, and says something with confidence. He cries and smiles as he leans against a tree, expressing mixed feelings. He sits holding his head and says that he thought he was ready, but his bank balance is upsetting him, while there are skeletons and 1 cloaked figure standing around. With a smile, he casts a spell over an open book with a pentagram surrounded by a magical glow. He placed his hand on a glowing object that was emitting a bright blue energy. He is concentrating on activating a magical artifact surrounded by blue light in a narrow gorge between rocks. He smiles and creates a glowing blade of energy in his hand against a backdrop of rocks and trees. Hyrkin received the essence of a skeleton warrior, increasing his defense by 5, surrounded by a bright blue aura. He stares intently at his hand, which is emitting a blue electric glow. He raises a glowing magic staff that emits blue radiance and sparks. He intently releases a powerful energy punch from his hand, aimed downwards. He assures the skeletons that he feels great and everything is working better than he expected. He abruptly placed his hand on the glowing map, causing powerful energy and sparks to appear all around. A notification appears about getting the Curse of Laziness skill. He looks thoughtfully ahead, and the skeleton next to him silently watches the scene. He looks at the skeleton, who expresses bewilderment, shrugging his shoulders and showing a question mark. He sits quietly, surrounded by skeletons, while one of them prepares to attack, and he expresses satisfaction with the situation with a smile. He touches the glowing symbols, which begin to break up into particles, causing a magical reaction. He sits with an illuminated blue artifact, and 3 skeletons and a cloaked figure stand nearby as the ground collapses and heaves around them. 3 skeletons with blue eyes watch as shards of rock fall from above, creating a tense atmosphere. He and the skeletons notice the golem's appearance and exclaim about it while standing in front of the huge stone creature. With 4 skeletons on his back, he confidently declared that he was more reliable than any tank here. He chuckles and points a finger at his cheek in mockery or challenge. A burst of energy with a bright blue light rips through the stone surface, accompanied by a loud sound. The hooded figure summons lightning, which strikes the stone golem, causing it pain. It summons a powerful spirit, demonstrating control over energy and confidently declaring its power. He clenches his fist, surrounded by blue flames, preparing for action. He strikes a powerful blow and exclaims that it is effective. The stone golem watches in silence, its eye glowing blue against the sky. It breaks through the stone wall, creating a passage out in the desert area. He glances nervously at his watch as the 4 skeletons watch him and make noises. He gritted his teeth and made a sharp sound, indicating tension or pain. He looks at a huge stone golem with a glowing eye that suddenly raised its hand. They are standing in front of a huge stone golem that stretches out its arm towards them, making loud noises. 2 people watch a huge stone golem that is preparing to attack, surrounded by rocks. He laughs and covers his face with his hand, expressing surprise and amusement. He holds his head in frustration and screams as skeletons and a huge stone golem with a glowing eye stand in the distance. 4 characters sit in the corners of a long table, deep in discussion or reflection in a darkened room. He speaks with determination, surrounded by blue light in a dark room. He said with a smile that there would be faces here. He said, thoughtfully, resting his hand on his chin in the blue light. She stands in profile, surrounded by blue light and digital distortion, as if appearing or disappearing in a technological environment. He says thoughtfully that more people came than expected, and the other asks with a smile if he really thinks so. He turned around when he heard her calmly say that the decision had already been made and was not up for discussions. The image shows a planet with a network of glowing lines above it and red spots resembling blood splatters in the background of the title, Of Warlords. He talks about the fierce competition between the two while being in a tense atmosphere with red flashes all around. He reports that the guild has learned the identity of the corrupt count, and a sinister multi-headed shadow appears behind him. He explains that none of the other guilds are even close, and the other suggests that the Hydra Guild did something. He slammed his fist down hard on the surface, expressing determination and anger. He furiously warns that they will take over all the major quests of the future. She warns that if someone is afraid, keep quiet and stay down, adding that it is not necessary to make her angry. He fiercely challenged the Thunder Lady while holding a glittering lightning bolt in his hand. The 4 characters discuss that a fight between them will only benefit the Hydra Guild, agreeing with this opinion. He seriously explains that he is anti-Hydra. 2 men sit at a table and promise not to fight until the end of the quest with a corrupt count. He admitted that he does not like intrigue, but believes that there is no other way out, while the other 2 listen to him with varying degrees of dissatisfaction. She looks away in silence, clearly focused and tense. The image shows a powerful stream of steam coming from a round device on a stand. She stands under the shower, holding her hand under the stream of water. He is standing in the rain with his head down, and the sound of falling water can be heard all around him. The image shows a person's feet standing on a wet floor, probably in the shower or bathroom. He struggles to turn the sweat-soaked doorknob. He quickly puts on his shirt, eyes closed in concentration. She's wearing a kimono, looking at her phone, and taking off her outer clothing. He's on the phone, explaining that he can't talk right now because he's busy. She says on the phone that the corrupt number will be theirs no matter what. He in armor and she in a raincoat stand in front of the Raider Guild building in Suryu Castle, watching the people around them. The hooded man looks worried and says something with concern in his voice. The man with the beard said that if he didn't want to, he wouldn't force it by addressing the other person with his back turned. The hooded figure is explaining something to another person, who is listening and gesturing at the table with books in the room. Dark creatures with red, glowing eyes and horns gather together in a gloomy atmosphere, radiating an ominous energy. He panicked warns of impending danger, surrounded by dark, ominous smoke. He says something important, expressing a serious attitude to the situation. He listens anxiously to the mention of corrupt tracker. Dark creatures with a red glow dangerously gather together in a gloomy atmosphere, creating a sense of impending danger. The hooded man speaks with anxiety and tension, feeling the dark, ominous shadows around him. He says he can't believe what's happening and is clearly surprised by the situation. He was alarmed to learn of the existence of a trackers for the corrupt. The image shows a clock tower with a bell that rings, accompanied by the sounds of tang. He sits by the fountain, his head in his hands, and people walk around against the backdrop of city buildings and mountains. He is hooded, holding his head in his hands with tension and fear, his eyes wide open in horror. He draws a bow with a magic arrow against the background of a purple glow, preparing to shoot. He shouts, "Quest line!" with a tense expression and a clenched fist against a dark pattern. He looks ahead in surprise and alarm, a drop of sweat running down his face. He dodges the dragon's attack and delivers a powerful blow with his blue sword at the skeletal creature. He said that if she didn't want to go, she could stay at home, and asked what she was going to do next. He thought about it and said that he couldn't just give up on the main quest without knowing what to do next. He listens thoughtfully as the other man insists that guilds are a sure thing, and the woman in the hat sits on a bench next to him. The hooded figure looks forward with surprise and tension, as if he has realized something important or unexpected. With a smile, he activates the device on his wrist, which emits a blue glow in a dark environment. Through the scope, they watch the gloomy castle against the background of an overcast sky. He said with binoculars that everything was coming to an end, and the other complained that he had to sit and watch. He stares intently through binoculars, concentrating on something in the distance under the gloomy sky. Two men sit on a rock and look at the castle. One suggests not to get ahead of yourself. He lies on the ground and looks anxiously at the other, who is standing over him and saying something important. He looks away thoughtfully, as if thinking about something important. He shouts, "Hydra!" while the other two react tensely to his appearance in the forest. He smiles and gives a thumbs up, and a small yellow bird is perched on his head. He's laughing, and a bird is sitting on his head, saying something. The one with the red hair looks warily ahead, and the other with the mask is sitting next to him, both tense and ready for action. He shouts angrily at him, and the other man listens thoughtfully, one hand on his chin. He speaks confidently with a sword on his back, and the other, overcome with rage, prepares to attack, expressing determination and anger. He leaps furiously at the opponent, while the other watches, holding a toy with a picture of a chicken in his hands. He smiles at the glowing screen on his wrist and looks like he's about to say something. He spoke anxiously to his supervisor as he sat next to her and stared at the holographic screen. She says, with a serious expression, that she can't let anyone leave. He thoughtfully asks about her motives as she listens intently next to him. He says that they are not in a position to choose while she is sitting next to him, and they are looking at the holographic screen together. He smiles and looks at the glowing screen, expressing confidence and calmness. He says that if this is really the case, then the situation becomes serious. He smiles and looks at the holo display on his wrist. The image shows a massive explosion destroying the ground and sending rocks and dust flying into the air. He and she call Kim's anxiously, having noticed something unexpected. He raised his hand with a smile, indicating that he was ready for battle despite his sweat and fatigue. She stands in front of him with a threatening smile, surrounded by the explosion and rising dust, and he raises his hands in an attempt to defend himself. She says with a grin that she is not afraid and is ready for battle, showing confidence and strength. Angry wolf with burning eyes growls, showing sharp fangs in the forest at dawn. A stone giant with a blue light in its eye clenches its fist, preparing to attack. A huge bear with red eyes attacks fiercely, destroying the stone arm with a powerful punch. A large fist delivers powerful blows to the surface, causing explosions and flying fragments. A bright blue light in the shape of a cross suddenly bursts out of the dark tunnel, creating an explosion and tension effect. It deals a powerful blow to the stone creature with the shining eye, causing destruction all around. In the forest, a robot is preparing to hit a bear with red eyes, and nearby in a raincoat and 3 skeletons are watching their collision. A huge beast with red eyes attacks, a man sits on a tree, and 4 skeletons in 3D glasses watch what is happening without interfering. He's sitting in a tree and thinks he should have gotten answers by now. The message "Find Miggy" appears on the screen, and glass breaks in front of the viewer, behind which the silhouettes of 2 people are visible. The map shows a castle with an inscription in Korean, surrounded by mountains and forests on the seashore. He stands with his back to me, wrapped in darkness and red mist, surrounded by a gold frame with patterns. The image shows a portrait of a man in a gold frame, which is cut with bloody stripes, creating the effect of violence or destruction. He put his hands to his head and said with relief that everything went well. He was sitting in a tree and said with a smile that he was excluding Choi Seolin from the list. Of course. He noticed something unexpected in the forest and expressed surprise. A huge stone arm falls to the ground with a powerful explosion, kicking up dust and debris all around. A huge stone golem with a glowing eye rises from the ground, scattering stones and dust around it. A huge beast with burning eyes roars furiously and prepares to attack on the cliff. He sharply attacks the huge monster, ordering it to be silent. He orders silence, standing next to the stone golem while the dead beast lies nearby and the skeletons watch on. He sits in a forest surrounded by skeletons and speaks to the audience through a holographic screen on his wrist. He announces, "Live on behalf of the Hydra Guild," that the identity of the corrupt count has been revealed. He reports that the raid begins while holding the microphone in his hand. He anxiously prays that something will happen during this month. He looks at the hologram in surprise, and there are 2 skeletons standing behind him, causing him a shock. He laughs and is glad that there are only 3 days left while there are 4 skeletons standing around him. He forcefully squeezes the stone hand, shattering it into pieces. A bear fights a stone golem, while a group of skeletons and a cloaked man watch and comment that 3 days is fast. He sits on a tree branch and confidently says that they are significantly ahead of other guilds in terms of basic indicators. He looks away with a grin, hiding his face under the hood. He falls to the ground with blood coming out of his mouth, making a painful sound. All the members of the Hydra Guild died, and the mission failed. He stares at the phone screen in horror, not understanding what is happening. He exclaimed in disbelief, throwing the phone to the floor with force. He shouts furiously and points his finger forward, expressing great indignation. He hits the floor hard and asks if they're being overrated. A message appears on the tablet screen, indicating the start of the live broadcast of the Red Bulls team. He smiles, and a sinister figure in armor appears behind him, asking where Matador Chev is. He looks anxiously at the phone and thinks to himself, "Is this really true?" He noted that the field is being restored. He stands in front of a ruined castle and reports that the Hydra raid must have failed. He smiles and says something with confidence, holding a hand to his horned head. The swordsman declared that the power was great enough to destroy the Hydra Guild, while a group of red-armored men listened intently. A large object slams violently into the ground, causing a powerful explosion and scattering fragments. A voice announces that the Red Bulls team accepts the challenge. A warrior in red armor with horns happily clasps his hands over a glowing sword, preparing for an important event. A group of warriors with raised fists and weapons shout the battle cry, expressing determination and unity before the battle. He is walking on a rocky road in high-heeled shoes. The sound of his footsteps is heard. She is wearing a cloak with gold trim as she walks towards the castle, surrounded by knights in blue uniforms, ready for battle. He exclaimed Chae Seol-young's name in amazement, looking at her with a glowing halo behind his back. At night, at a camp with a red flag and a fortress in the background, several guards are on duty and walk around the campfire. He laughs and says that the situation is funny, being in the background of the fortress wall and tents. 3 men in military uniforms are looking at the red armored person sitting there. She is confidently making conversation, and 2 people nearby are observing the situation. He asked her if she was declaring war on them, and she answered with a smile, sitting at the table by the fire. He smiles and says something confident, while the other sweats and adjusts the bird on his head, clearly confused by the situation. She smiles with her eyes closed, and the other teases her by sticking out her tongue and touching her face with her finger. He jerked his hand away in surprise or alarm. She sits smiling and leaning on her arm, expressing confidence and calmness in the evening environment. He says with a smile that he is not afraid, referring to another person who is only partially visible. She smiles thoughtfully, resting her hand on her chin, lost in thought. He stands next to a seated man who has his head down, while 3 others watch them around a campfire with a backdrop of a wooden fortress with waving banners. He laughs and says that they don't know something, sitting by the fire in armor. She smiles and touches her lips thoughtfully, creating a mysterious and confident atmosphere. He said he hadn't expected to see her here, and she smiled back as they continued their conversation at the table. She is sitting at the table and smiling, holding her hand to her chest. 2 people are standing next to her, one of whom is saying. He stands with his back to the viewer in front of a glowing stone or altar, lost in thought or prayer. He smiles with a little confidence, as if he's ready to share an important thought or plan. She smiles with her eyes closed, radiating calm and confidence. She swiftly swings her sword with a blue light, and he looks at her in surprise from the ground. He looks warily at the door with a sword on his back, and the other greets with a smile, while the first one has a small yellow bird perched on his head. She confidently plunges her sword into the ground, smiling with determination and strength in her eyes. He looks ahead in surprise, as if trying to make sense of what's going on around him. He remembers thinking she was bluffing at the time. He is wearing red armor with horns on his helmet and smiles, and says that it was a good fight and he is glad that he was able to fight. In a fierce battle, she strikes a powerful spear at monsters with red eyes, tearing them apart. He says with a sinister smile and glowing eyes that the result is not bad for such pitiful scum, holding a flaming energy in his hand. He threatens to completely break the will of his opponents, surrounded by ominous shadows and red light. The image shows 3 sinister creatures with red eyes making loud noises in a tense and gloomy atmosphere. A group of fighters fights monsters. One of them warns about a new attack, and the other orders to hold the enemies. He resolutely fights hordes of enemies, not stopping there. She prepares for battle against the backdrop of a ruined castle and approaching enemies with red eyes. A warrior in red armor delivers a powerful blow, and a woman in white watches the fight with confidence. It delivers a powerful fire strike surrounded by flames and energy, creating an impressive burst of power. He strikes a powerful blow with his sword at an enemy in armor, causing an explosion of energy. He rushes forward swiftly with his sword, preparing to fight a huge, shadowy figure against the backdrop of the ruined landscape. He shouts furiously, expressing his indignation with the words, "How dare you!" and prepares to attack. She attacks swiftly, smashing the ground and walls with powerful punches, while the other girl bounces back. She plummets down with a determined expression and glowing eyes, destroying the ground around her. He looks up at a woman floating in the air against the backdrop of a ruined castle and a pink sky. She's holding a sword and preparing to attack, her eyes glowing with blue electricity and her hair flying in the air. He reacts with surprise and fear to a sudden event, expressing it with a short exclamation. He lifts the wounded man into the air with the help of black tentacles, surrounded by destruction and blood against a gloomy sky. He is wearing red armor with horns, shouting and rushing forward rapidly, preparing to attack. He opens his mouth with blood on his neck, as if trying to speak or breathe. She quickly attacks with a spear, and he reacts with surprise to the sudden attack. She looks ahead intently, radiating energy, and prepares for a powerful attack amid flying rocks and dust. He screams with his mouth wide open and glowing red eyes, through which a bright ray of light passes. He lands forcefully in front of a figure with multiple arms, surrounded by light and collapsing earth. A warrior in red armor with horns laughs, expressing confidence and joy in battle. She stands with a sword on the defeated enemy, while the Red Bulls and Thunder Hunters teams are announced to have defeated the corrupt Count. He leans wearily on the bed in a room with the curtains closed and the lights off. He stands by the window with his head down, lost in thought. He abruptly clenched his fist, making a thumping sound. She looks ahead with determination against the sunset sky. He looks up with a determined expression, preparing for action. The image shows a mountain landscape with high cliffs, autumn trees, and a pair of flying birds against a blue sky. He happily jumps into battle, accompanied by several skeletons who also rush forward. He's smiling with his eyes closed, wearing a hood as if enjoying the moment. He is wearing a hood with a smile on his face and makes a sharp sound, expressing confidence or challenge. He runs in a panic, chased by vicious skeletons and huge, ferocious boars with red eyes. He takes a step on the ground, accompanying the movement with sound, but there is no speech in the image. A group of 5 people is standing in front of a red energy grid. One of them reports that the field is blocked. He studies the red laser beams, and the skeleton next to him wonders about the meaning of the grid symbol. He snaps his fingers, creating a red energy circle on the grid background. He smiles and says the word "Chow" in the dark, creating a mysterious atmosphere. He extends his hand towards the red energy funnel, creating a vortex of light and energy around it. He confidently steps forward, surrounded by a red magic barrier and skeletons, while an inscription appears about the entrance to the Bulkas Mountains. A message appears about getting the title, first to set foot in the Bulkas Mountains, and increasing all stats by +2, and class-related stats by +1. He approves with a smile, saying it's great. 3 skeletons and 1 in a raincoat are surprised, looking at the man who stands in front of them. He steps on the ground, causing the sound and movement of the grass around him. He runs towards a herd of wild boars, followed by 4 skeletons in the forest. 3 wild boars with red eyes growl and prepare to attack. He runs forward with a smile, full of determination and energy. A huge, ferocious boar appears in front of them with glowing red eyes and smoke coming out of its nostrils. Snicker looks ahead with a smile, preparing for action. 2 huge boars with red eyes growl furiously and prepare to attack. He turns stiffly and painfully, wondering inwardly how he came to be in this situation. He reflects that some have already realized that the blocked field is now open. He says emphatically that he's not going to waste any more time here. He thinks the odds are slim, but decides to try anyway. He leaps to attack the skeletons with glowing eyes and horns that are advancing on him. The image shows an aggressively growling, large animal-like creature with an open mouth and a glowing eye. He fights off attacking wild boars, which run into the ground next to him, causing surprise. He dodges the creature's attack and is surprised that he only got hit once. 2 ferocious boars with red eyes are depicted, surrounded by ominous purple flames, ready to attack. He is standing in front of 3 huge, ferocious creatures with purple auras, preparing for battle in the forest. He says "now" with a smile and reaches for the glowing sword that someone is holding. With a determined smile, he attacks swiftly, swinging his sword in a dynamic motion. He was surprised to hear a sound and noticed something yellow moving quickly on the ground. He lands abruptly in front of 3 beastly creatures, preparing for a fight. He falls face down, and a banana lands on his back, making a thumping sound. He lies on the ground with a banana peel on his head, while another shouts his name from a tree, expressing alarm. He laughs, pointing and holding a banana in his hand as if mocking someone. He gets angry and forcefully does something to express annoyance. He is kneeling and pointing, surrounded by snarling, ferocious boars with red eyes. He notices in horror that the effect ends when he is suddenly attacked by a beast with red eyes. The image shows a bright blue burst of light with sparks and sound effects. He defends himself from the sudden attack of a large wolf with shining eyes and open mouth. He is shocked when he notices that arrows are flying in his direction, fired by a man hiding in a tree. It releases a powerful blue energy beam, hitting several wolf-like creatures in the forest at night. He's wearing a hood over his head, listening intently as dust and wind rise around him. He looks at the approaching man in surprise when a strange creature with an open mouth appears next to him. A man with a mustache, holding a bow on his back, looks at a man with white hair standing in front of him in a forest against a bright sky. In the center of the city, people gather at the fountain, and in the foreground, you can see a tall clock tower illuminated by bright sunlight. He stopped in surprise when another guy touched his arm, drawing his attention. He's standing with his arms crossed in a suit of armor, and the other one is looking in his direction in surprise. He adjusts his glasses and prepares to say something. He says that if someone wants him to leave, they can just say so. He speaks with his glasses on as a figure appears behind him, shrouded in a dark haze. He stands against the wall with his hands clasped, and she, hidden in the shadows, says that the corrupt count voluntarily gave out information for free. He hides around the corner and notices a man in armor standing with his back to him, as if trying to avoid him. He listens in silence, not replying. He leaned over, and she, with a snake on her shoulder, asked if he was looking for a job as an assistant. He says that he will take care of the case while she watches from the shadows, hiding her face under the hood. He squeezes his metal-gloved hand, making a clicking sound. He blames someone for ruining the balance of the world with a bright look. Two people are sitting on the roof of the house, watching the forest and the lighted path leading into the depths. He laughs happily and asks a Himbri as he hands her the book. He looks ahead, embarrassed, with a slight blush on his cheeks and a thoughtful expression in his eyes. He holds a cup of hot drink and looks at the other person, preparing for the conversation. The narrator explains that Ma Wong was a skilled swordsmanship mentor to the prince, but was banished due to an accident. He says that after that, he became the captain of the Rangers, guarding the Bulkas Mountains. He looks ahead with confidence as he prepares for the challenge ahead. He says that he was very lucky to meet someone by chance, but breaks off in mid-sentence. He gravely drinks from a mug, and the other, smiling, answers, sitting opposite by the fireplace in a cozy room. A man with a mustache speaks seriously, and a hooded youth listens to him in a room with large windows. He slapped the wooden floor sharply, expressing determination or anger. He says it's pointless to pretend to be unavailable, because he already knows how to get his way. He says with a smile that despite everything that has happened, the situation is still interesting. The white-haired man said he couldn't let him die, to which the scarred man replied that it was his choice. He looks thoughtfully ahead, clearly deep in serious thought, not saying a word. He is surprised to ask if there is any proof, and gets a title for first contact with Ranger Bulkas. He defiantly asked if he should start first, and the other man sitting down tried to calm him down. He stands outside the house and says it's great, because he still needed to level up. He touches his chin thoughtfully, as sinister silhouettes with red crosses appear behind him. The hooded figure suddenly noticed something and reacted in surprise. He laughs in armor, holding a banana in one hand, and points forward with the other, expressing joy and excitement. He smiles and clenches his hands tightly, making a thumping sound. The image shows a picturesque autumn forest against a backdrop of mountains under a blue sky with light clouds and falling leaves. He stumbles and falls in the woods, making a sound of pain. An armored warrior falls to the ground in the forest, letting out a cry of fright. He fell to the ground with a cry, and the other one, who was wearing armor, was watching him and laughing softly. He laughs in armor and points with his finger, expressing a cheerful and fervent mood. She suddenly approached him in the woods, and he noticed her approach with surprise. He smiles as he holds a peeled banana in his hand, preparing to eat it. The armored warrior looks in dismay at the armored monkey, who happily shouts and threatens with a banana, claiming to have found it. He's sweating in his armor and scratching the back of his head with a smile, clearly uncomfortable or embarrassed. With a sinister smile, he warned the other that he was now dead. He raises his sword with determination, preparing for a powerful attack. It delivers a powerful punch, knocking the opponent back with force and bright light all around. He falls violently to the ground after a massive explosion, letting out a cry of pain. A warrior in armor with a sword attacks two opponents who fly back in the forest. He rushes forward in a rage, expressing great irritation and tension in his movements. He thinks that the enemy is too fast and the trees prevent him from attacking normally, so he finds it very annoying. He jumps swiftly with his fist, preparing to attack in the forest with autumn leaves. He quickly swings his sword, concentrating on attacking in a dynamic movement. He deals a powerful blow with a glowing weapon, sending the enemy flying through the forest. He is wearing armor and carrying a sword, flying swiftly through the trees, making a sound of surprise. He in armor screams in fright, expressing strong surprise or fear. The armored warrior strikes a powerful blow with his sword, causing a bright flash of energy. A warrior in armor with an expression of tension strikes with a sword in a dark room. He laughs while sitting on a tree branch, expressing joy and fun in the forest. The hooded figure is holding out one hand in concentration, as if preparing to attack or defend. In a panic, he runs away from the giant stone hand that is rapidly approaching him. A mechanical fist forcefully smashes through the wall, causing a massive explosion and shattering shards. He stands on the branch of a tall tree in the forest, watching the surrounding nature and feeling the wind. The character lies on the ground with his mouth open and is given the title, First to Hunt Ape Armor. He's holding the glowing skull with a smile and looking at it with interest. Several operators turn on their cameras and direct the light, creating a bright flash in the room. Two characters stand on the stairs in the palace, encouraging photographers to pay attention to them while they are actively shooting. He is wearing red armor with horns and looks at her, and she waves her hand in greeting and smiles back. He offers her a microphone, but she refuses, not wanting to talk. She smiles and says something in a solemn hall with a luxurious interior. She stands in the hall in her armor, looking ahead intently, making sounds of tension. One of the women complimented Shiro, saying that she was really the best as they walked down the hall. She laughs, covering her face with her hand, and he looks down and says something serious. She says the situation would be different if there were no Red Bulls, and the other one is standing nearby listening. She looks away, showing displeasure and weariness. With white hair and a mask, he smiles, surrounded by blue flames, as if preparing for battle or showing strength. One woman shouts in exasperation at the other, who wearily covers her face with her hand and doesn't answer. She covered her mouth thoughtfully, lost in serious thought. The image shows the moment of destruction of an object with the effect of an explosion and flying fragments. He stands among the skeletons, and a message appears on the screen that the durability of his equipment has reached 0 and it has been destroyed. He clutches his sword with pain in his eyes, as if preparing for a tough battle or an inner challenge. He's wearing a hood and a mask, smiling, sweating, and looking away as if he's preparing for something important. The image shows a shining blue crystal with the inscription that it increases attack by 2 and is called Werewolf Gem. He lifted his chin thoughtfully as he stood against the golden lion and skull staff, as if preparing for an important decision. The skeleton with glowing eyes noticed something behind them, and the other 3 turned in the same direction in the forest. He laughs with a crazy smile as he stands in the woods, in front of 2 skeletons who watch him anxiously. He is wearing a hood with fright and horror on his face, expressing great shock and fear. He sees many armored monkeys climbing up him, creating a mountain of bodies, and expresses surprise. He reaches for the doll in fright, and the skeletons behind him agree, saying that it remains to take one more step. He falls to the ground as skeletons and a cloaked figure call out to him in the dark forest. The warrior in red armor claims that the interlocutor must be a mask of Hanoi. He looks ahead with a serious expression, partially hidden by a hood and a mask with teeth. A warrior in red and black armor stands in the background of the forest, preparing for battle or thinking about the upcoming battle. He raises a heavy weapon, preparing for battle against a clear sky. He is in armor preparing for battle, and she stands next to him with her head bowed, hiding her emotions. Wearing a red helmet and armor, he stands in the dark, surrounded by an ominous atmosphere and chains, creating a sense of menace and power. He is wearing a mask with red and black elements and makes an ominous sound. A warrior in red armor abruptly fights off the attack, while another watches from behind. A warrior in red armor in the forest prepares for an attack by tensing up and raising his arms in a defensive pose in front of the enemy. He looks thoughtfully at the approaching warrior in red armor and wonders without words. He clenches his fist, expressing determination or tension. The hooded man rudely said that he was busy and told him to leave, while a man in red armor stood in the woods in the distance. He irritably thinks that the gem is not falling, and now some madman is stopping him. He in red armor offers 5,000 gold to anyone who fights him. He addresses the other person affably as skeletons and hooded figures appear around them. A warrior in red and black armor effectively performs combat movements, making sounds that accompany his actions. A warrior in armor stands in the background of an explosion, demonstrating the strength and justice of the hero. The image shows the logo with the words, Hero of Justice, crossed out with a red cross, and the number 001 brass at the bottom. The Dark Warrior thanks Quixote, and the others cheerfully support him from both sides. 4 of them surround the warrior in black and red armor. One of them raises a finger, and the others smile and support him. The image shows a raised metal hand with an outstretched index finger on a light background. Wearing red armor, he held up a finger in the square as other passersby hurried past, ignoring him. He's wearing a red helmet and says thoughtfully that he wants to watch, and someone interrupts him, apologizing. One man laughs as he talks to another, while a red-cloaked man watches them as other people pass and stand around. He's wearing a mask and hood, smiling and pointing a finger at his mouth, while the other one in armor falls to the ground and thinks he's being buried with someone who started at the same time as him. He is lying on the ground in red armor, foaming at the mouth, showing that he has been badly hurt. The armored man asked where he was, explaining that he ran without thinking and ended up here. He laughs with a mask in the forest, and another in the shade is surprised to think that this is someone familiar. The armored man is surprised that the field should be blocked while the other 2 watch him from the bushes. He looks on with tension and determination, preparing for the challenge ahead. An armored man with a sword attacks another masked man, who tries to defend himself in fright. The armored warrior raised his sword over the man lying on the ground, and the surrounding people looked on in surprise and admiration. On the ground lies a foot, around which leaves fall, creating an atmosphere of peace and quiet. A masked man demonstrates a fighting stance, preparing for battle with a determined attitude. He exclaims in surprise, not understanding what's going on. He points at the masked opponent, preparing for battle, and the latter takes a fighting stance in the forest. He is wearing a mask with a toothy pattern, bending tensely, as if preparing for a fight or evasion. He is wearing a mask with red elements, looks up and starts talking. The masked man says, "Ugh!" in a startled, pained voice, clearly uncomfortable or tired. A masked man rushes forward, shouting, while another watches him from the shadows. He dodges a powerful blow aimed in his direction. 2 masked fighters attack 3 opponents, delivering quick punches and kicks in a tense fight. The masked man delivers a powerful punch, which is met by the hooded man, defending himself with a raised hand. He delivers a powerful punch to the red-patterned masked opponent. The masked man receives a powerful blow, accompanied by the sounds of impact. He intensely pronounces the word skill, clenching his fist, which is shrouded in flames. The masked warrior shouts, "Booster!" and delivers a powerful fire strike at the white-haired opponent. He furiously clenches his fist in front of him, preparing for the decisive action. A masked man and another without clothes fight, delivering powerful blows that cause bright bursts of energy. It deals a powerful blow, causing an explosion and destruction all around. He sits with his hands covering his face, surrounded by dust and smoke from an explosion or destruction. The masked man thinks that this person might look stupid, but probably has a higher level than him. He prepares for battle with determination, expressing that he will not tolerate injustice. He emphatically says that if this is the case, then he is standing in the woods, leaning on his arm, and the other in a helmet is watching him from around the corner. He wears a mask with horns and is surrounded by red energies, preparing for action or threat. He shouts that he is stronger than the opponent and attacks him with force, while the third watches the fight in the forest. The masked man delivers a powerful punch to the enemy, accompanying the attack with shouts. The helmeted warrior delivers a powerful blow, causing the opponent to react painfully. He hit his opponent, who coughed in response and asked what it was. Dirt. The masked man delivers a powerful kick to the other, who falls back to the ground in the forest. He falls to the ground, and the other one says, "If his strength is up," the text breaks off. A masked man with white hair delivers a powerful punch to another man in a helmet, who tries to defend himself with his hand. He deals a powerful blow to the other, which makes a sound of pain. He delivers a powerful punch, knocking the opponent into the air and destroying the wall behind him. A hooded figure approaches the masked man, who shivers and hears himself being called a coward. With a smile, he summons a magical wolf-shaped shadow from his hand. The image shows a glowing purple silhouette of a head with stitches, surrounded by energy, against the background of a dark space. The magic item is surrounded by purple energy, and someone orders it to be used. He activates the dark energy emanating from his hand, enhancing his abilities. Wearing a red helmet with horns and a star, he looks tense and sweats in the dark surroundings. He is intently preparing for battle, surrounded by purple energy, warning the enemy that he must be ready to respond. A masked man with his hands raised shouts to stop, expressing alarm and trying to prevent the action. The character in the red helmet is crying, making sounds that express strong emotions. It releases a powerful purple energy blast, hitting the opponent, who is knocked back by the force of the impact. He breathes heavily, surrounded by purple energy, and lets out a tired, "ha" sound. He delivers a powerful punch to the enemy in the forest, causing a strong explosion of energy around them. Shivering and sweating, he admitted that he was scared and almost forgot what was inside the game, while the others silently watched. Wearing a mask and glowing eyes, he delivers a powerful punch, smiling in a tense combat environment. The masked man explains that he was forcibly disabled for 2 days, addressing the interlocutor in a red helmet. He puts on his helmet with an admiring look on his face and thinks it's very cool. He asked in surprise what was going on, and the other thought with a grin that something was wrong with him, holding a glowing blue object. Quixote admitted complete defeat and offered 5,000 gold to the other party. He raises a sword with a skull and glowing eyes, radiating powerful energy. He exclaimed, "Sword," while clutching the blade at his mouth, preparing for action. He happily accepts the gift, surprised that it is given to him while the other person is watching him. He grins, and the other, embarrassed, covers his mouth with his hand, trying to hide his embarrassment. He admits that he was too lazy to get stronger by talking against the background of the autumn forest. He starts to take off the other man's pants, showing the tension of the moment. He confidently declared that he was worthy to become his brother. He has a mask on his face and thinks that the other person might look like an idiot, but he kicked the other man, who asked in surprise if that was what he thought he was going to hear. He is in a panic, surrounded by 4 skeletons with glowing eyes that are watching him intently. Against the blue sky and tree canopy, someone moved quickly, creating the effect of cutting the air. He stares ahead while tied to a tree, his cheeks swollen and his expression angry. The masked man clenched his fist, and the bound man on the cross shouted as the hooded skeleton stood around. The skeleton turns in surprise to the hooded man, who is standing with his back turned and smiling. Sword in hand, he rejoices, and behind him are 3 skeletons and a hooded figure watching him in the forest. He believes that this should be enough to take on the next quest. He looks forward with determination, and the ominous red silhouette of a beast appears behind him, making a threatening sound. He takes a decisive step on the ground, preparing for action. He happily shows something to the 2 skeletons, who look confused and remain silent. As he struggles to escape, the skeletons grab him, warning him that the ground is about to give way, and he can feel it. The image shows a mystical sword with skulls on the hilt, surrounded by blue flames on a dark purple background. He holds 3 glowing tasks with the image of a boar and a reward for defeating monsters in the Bolkas Mountains. He lists the number of reinforced monkeys and wolves with sharp teeth, accompanying the words with sinister images of creatures with glowing eyes. He holds the cards and reports that he has 76 venomous lizards. He looks down thoughtfully from the bottle room in the background. He smiles sheepishly and asks for silence, raising a finger to his lips to address the other person. He scratches his head with a smile, and the other one backs away in fright, trying to explain. The man with the mustache confidently declared that the map would show the way, addressing the silver-haired interlocutor. He points his finger at the map, showing an important place located between mountains and forests. A warrior in armor stands in front of a giant bear with red eyes and a sword surrounded by ominous red smoke. He looks down in surprise, clearly startled by what he's seen or heard. He explained that he couldn't afford to lose it, and the man listened intently. He looks ahead intently and says something important, visibly flustered. He is wearing a hood and looking back with a smile, standing in the light by the window in a dark room. 2 people study a map against a mountain landscape, pointing to a place with the image of a dragon. He stands confidently in front of the 3 skeletons and says something with a smile while holding a weapon in his hand. With a smile and a blush on his face, he activates the device on his wrist, which emits a blue glow. 2 characters are looking at a virtual auction showcase with weapons and artifacts, where they are informed about the possibility of bidding with other users. He claims that this is definitely a set of skeleton snakes. He has acquired a shoulder protection called Skeleton Snake, which is confirmed by the notification that appears. The user purchased skeleton snake boots and gloves, which is confirmed by the notifications that appear. He raises his finger in concentration, surrounded by a mystical blue light and energy, preparing to use the force. He performs a backflip, holding a scroll in his hands, while the two watch him from behind the bushes. He confidently says that he should be ready for action, clenching his fist and smiling. He looks at the skeletons, who ask what about them. He points at the holographic shield with interest and says something with a smile, clearly discussing its characteristics. He's panicked and has a look of horror on his face, as if he's realized something terrible. He laughs and gives a thumbs-up sign of confidence and joy. He is surprised to notice that the skeletons around him have changed their behavior and are now behaving differently. In a panic, he notices two wild animals approaching him in the forest. He retreats in horror as skeletons with swords rush at him. He watches with a smile as the dead beasts and skeletons fall after the explosion, making queak sounds. A skeleton with shining eyes points its finger up against a background of pink lights and red leaves, and the inscription says that a few moments have passed. A skeleton with glowing eyes furiously attacks with a sword, making fighting sounds. He anxiously speaks to the skeletons with glowing eyes, who are laughing, and in the shadows the silhouettes of wolves can be seen. He, along with 3 skeletons, attacks with a powerful energy beam that tears the target apart and causes an explosion of blood. The hooded man looks around intently, clearly concerned about what's going on around him. 2 men in black shoes step on the ground, making distinctive footsteps. 3 tattooed men walk forward with confident smiles, and the stranger in black thinks they're just another group of losers. He introduced himself as Wang Jiang and said they were the Great Trinity, while the other 2 cheered him on. He laughs with his eyes closed, wearing a black hood and jacket, expressing joy or amusement. He delivers a powerful kick, knocking out 2 opponents surrounded by blue energy. He stands with his back turned, and the other makes an effort to make a sound of pain, after which the first one calls them losers. He stands with a sword in front of the skeletons and says that we need to find a shaman, while 2 men lie on the ground, breathing heavily. He and 3 skeletons run through the forest, hiding from their pursuers. He leaned over the lifeless body, shivering, trying to figure out what had happened. He presses hard on the glowing screen of his watch, lying on the ground, sweating with exertion. He puts his ringed hand on the tiger's head, causing the animal to react. He placed his ringed hand on the tiger's head, which was growling in displeasure. A group of warriors kneel in front of an armored man sitting on a throne surrounded by a tiger, paying their respects and respect. He promised threateningly that he would definitely make the other person pay. He points a threatening finger and says that there will be a penalty for neglecting his name. He said, "Wow," in surprise as he stood among the trees with falling leaves and robots behind him. A group of 4 skeletons and 1 person came to the cave entrance. He said they were finally here. He turned to the others with a smile and said something to get their attentions. 4 skeletons with shining eyes and jewelry pose against a background of pink radiance, radiating energy and shine. He menacingly addresses the 4 skeletons, who look terrified and retreat. The hooded man says something emphatically, expressing seriousness and urgency. He stands on top of the fallen monster, sword in hand, while the 3 onlookers stare at him in surprise and alarm. He turns to the 3 skeletons, who greet him in the forest in return. He's hooded and explains that they've been training. He noticed the skeletons and said it was talking about the devil, adding that in this case it was a bear, and the skeletons were surprised. They encounter a huge bear warrior with glowing red eyes, ready for battle. He presses a glowing button on the other person's wrist, triggering a reaction. He summons a powerful bear with glowing eyes, surrounded by a blue energy glow. He declares that he will take the main task and complete it alone. He hopes that the Haho mask is still here, and says that he came right after watching the monkey armor video. He stands in the forest with his staff, his head bowed, as if thinking or feeling sad. He leans against a tree and asks if they really need to be in such a remote place. He exclaims, asking if this is a crime, standing in front of a huge creature with red eyes and fangs. He whirled around, making a loud noise, expressing sudden surprise or pain. He defends himself with a magic shield from a fiery beast that attacks him fiercely in the cave. He stands with his staff, watching the fire, and sighs heavily. He confessed, staff in hand, that he really wanted to leave. He wearily asks Heiho Mask to finally appear, surrounded by falling leaves. A huge bear warrior with red eyes menacingly approaches a group of 4 people standing on the rocky ground in the rain. He presses a glowing button on his wrist device, preparing for action. He stands surrounded by blue energy, and behind him appears a huge beast with red eyes and an open mouth. He said with a smile that this time he would take everything himself. An angry bear with burning eyes lets out a loud roar, preparing to attack. He is wearing a mask with glowing eyes and a dark cloak, surrounded by a blue energy glow, looking forward with a determined expression on his face. A bear warrior in armor with red eyes roars furiously, preparing for battle with a sword and shield against the background of darkness and a glowing halo. He is confident in himself and says that he has prepared new skills specifically for this purpose. A monster with glowing eyes attacks with a sword, and another character in armor tries to dodge the blow. He's smiling, surrounded by 4 skeletons with glowing eyes, ready for battle. He stands on the ground, surrounded by blue flames, making sounds that express tension or effort. He is wearing a mask with blue eyes, rushing forward rapidly, surrounded by dark energy and blue flames. A huge bear in armor sees a warrior with a sword jump towards it, while 3 skeletons and 1 cloaked figure watch the scene. He's wearing armor with glowing elements and exclaims in surprise, asking, "What's that?" A bear warrior with armor stands in front of a group of skeletons with swords and a witch in a cloak, preparing for battle. An angry bear with red eyes furiously swings its paw, scattering bones and skulls around. He shouts in rage, surrounded by dark energy, expressing strong dissatisfaction with the situation. He is wearing a mask with glowing eyes and screams, expressing rage or pain against the background of the destroyed earth. He plummets down with his sword, while the other fights by releasing a glowing beam from above. He fights a huge beast with red eyes, trying to strike with a sword, but it repels the attack. The bear looks with a displeased expression at the person sitting on it, who is silent, not answering his question. He, with white hair and a mask on his face, turns his head sharply, making a sound that expresses surprise or tension. A huge bear with red eyes roars as it attacks the man who breaks through the wall with a powerful punch. He sits by a rock and says the force is too strong and he can't control it. An enraged bear with red eyes attacks, clutching a glowing object in its paw, causing the interlocutor to be surprised. He clutches a skull-encrusted sword and expresses anger at the tension in the forest. The red-eyed beast attacks furiously, and someone comments that it was a precise hit. He falls to the ground after a massive explosion next to him, and his sword lies nearby. He activates the dark energy in his hand and prepares to attack, saying that if this is the case, then creatures activate the Bone Bomb ability, and a purple glow and energy begins to radiate from their skulls. He summons a powerful violet energy that explodes and destroys the ground in front of him. He is confronted by a huge roaring bear surrounded by purple energy. He squeezes his head, feeling the pain of the dark energy, and agrees to something despite the obvious resistance. Mana is used to heal skeletal warriors who are surrounded by blue magic light. He is surrounded by a dark aura and says that now you will have to fight like a real necromancer. 4 skeletons with glowing blue eyes and blue flames all around gather together, creating an ominous atmosphere in front of an unknown threat. He looks in disbelief at the 3 skeletons and one in a raincoat who are also paying attention to him. It encourages someone to get out and get to work, jumping around with determination and energy. He summons a huge stone golem while skeletons stand around, preparing for battle. A huge stone giant attacks a creature with red eyes with a sword, which tries to defend itself with a shield. An angry bear with red eyes attacks with a glowing sword, breaking stone blocks. He smiles and shows a glowing ball of energy, showing off his strength and confidence. A huge beast with red eyes violently smashes rocks, letting out a loud roar. He orders the skeletons to attack, and they rush forward with bright glowing eyes. A skeleton with a spear jumps on another skeleton with a sword, ready to attack. against the sky. A huge bear with red eyes roars, attacking a skeleton with a sword that tries to defend itself. Skeletons with weapons attack rapidly, and a man with a shield runs ahead, surrounded by bright energy. An evil beast with red eyes roars, making a loud "Gwaha!" sound. He smiles and warns you not to make a mistake, raising his hand in greeting. The image shows a powerful explosion or fire attack with bright flashes and sound effects. He is standing in front of a large red-eyed fire bear with a sword stuck in the ground between them. He shouts that it's trying to kill him, while a huge bear and skeletons stand behind him, and a skeleton with blue eyes watches. The bear warrior let out a battle cry and regained 50% health with the skill. He stands calmly, despite the fierce attack of a huge beast with red eyes and an open mouth. He smiles as he holds the glowing skulls in his hands and radiates dark energy. A dark entity with bright glowing eyes spews out powerful energy, destroying everything around it. 4 skeletons with different reactions stand together, one of them sweating, and the other in a hood emits a purple glow. He attacks with a powerful energy blast, and the 2 onlookers are silent in amazement. A skeleton in a dark cloak holds a fire and appears against a background of roses with the inscription, "A few moments later." He stands on a defeated bear warrior, receiving notifications about the experience gained and the reward in gold for the victory. He smiles, holding up a black-gloved hand as if preparing for action. He clenches a gloved fist against a blue sky, expressing determination or readiness for action. He smiles, clenching a fist in armor and a mask with sharp teeth against the light sky. He prays the skeletons for a job well done, addressing them. He stands between 2 skeletons and declares with a smile that the destruction is complete. He gets angry and accuses his opponent of cowardice and wrong fighting, while 3 skeletons and a hooded figure watch nearby. The image shows a sign with a beer mug on the background of buildings on a sunny day. He is wearing a blue cloak and sits with his head down as 2 armored men watch him from the shadows of the room. He is expressing pain or regret with his eyes closed, as if confessing something important. He clutches his head in his hands in despair, feeling a strong inner tension and fear. He said that he had been looking for someone in the mountains for several days, but because of the viral video with the Heiho mask and the crowds of people in bulkas, it became even more difficult to find him. A masked man teases another man who has hit his head on the table, leaning on it with his hand next to the mug. He put his head down on the table and said something, leaning on the crook of his arm next to the mug. He says something with a sly smile, leaning on the table in a dark room with a gloomy atmosphere. He stares at the holographic screen that has emerged from the smartwatch on his wrist. He jumped up abruptly, and the mug on the table flew into the air, while the other man watched intently. He is passionately preparing for battle, expressing confidence and anticipation of the upcoming battle. Thoughtfully, she admitted that she might have given too much to handle it. He fights back tears and laughs, saying Shrews' name with touching tenderness. He laughs at the glowing holographic screen and expresses confidence in his abilities. He sits at the table and looks in surprise at the destruction of the wall, accompanied by a loud sound. He is sitting at a table in the room when a bright light bursts through the wall, followed by destruction and smoke. He whirled around, a look of alarm and tension on his face. 2 men angrily demand an explanation from the woman in purple, accusing her of treachery. She furiously claims that the other one also drew her here, clutching the glowing weapon. He smiles nervously and sweats, trying to hide his excitement. Someone in his mind exclaims about the cruelty of this world against the background of mountains and village houses. At the top of the cliff, he observes a fortified settlement at the foot of the mountains, surrounded by walls and watchtowers. The hooded figure whirled around, showing determination and tension. He rushes forward rapidly, overcoming obstacles in the forest, demonstrating determination and speed. He saw the 3 men leaping toward him and was surprised by what was happening. 3 men with determined expressions rush forward, ready for a fight or an important action. He is alarmed to see a group of men who look similar to the ones before, and thinks they are following him. He encourages the enemy to simply attack him, preparing for a fight in the forest. He is in a hurry and says that he doesn't want to waste time when there is a sudden movement next to him. He hears screams for help and sees the 3 running through the woods, trying to escape from danger. He looks anxiously at the bright glowing object that has suddenly appeared next to him. He watches a massive burst of energy hit two fighters, and blood flows from his nose from the strain and shock. He uttered a shocked, "What the hell?" as he watched the hooded man standing on a tree branch, while the other two looked up. She confidently walks forward with a sword, and he follows her with a staff, preparing for the upcoming battle in the dark forest. He looks down with a mysterious smile, creating a tense atmosphere. He looks in surprise at the glowing sword in the forest, preparing for an unexpected battle. She asked with a smile if it was a nanomask, holding a weapon with pink elements in her hand. She stabs a huge sword into the ground with a fierce expression, surrounded by an ominous red energy. She looks ahead confidently, preparing for the upcoming challenge in the dark forest. He is concentrating on summoning magical energy, surrounded by a glowing symbol and sparkling particles. He is wearing a blue raincoat with gold inserts, looking ahead with a serious expression against the background of a dark forest. He is facing two blue-robed characters, one holding a staff and the other a shield, preparing for a possible collision. He thinks that if they're looking for Heiho's mask, they're trying to recruit him to the guild. He quickly runs through the forest towards the two people standing in front of him, preparing for a collision. He scratches his head in surprise, surrounded by his many smiling faces in the background. He thinks he can pretend that he doesn't know anything, because without proof, they won't get hurt. He accuses her of lying, looking at her with anger, and she looks at him with surprise and tension. He is surprised that the other doesn't know who Heiho Musk is, and explains that he has already committed more than 20 acts in the area of Mount Bulkas. He looks suspicious and says that the situation seems very suspicious to him. He's wearing a hooded top with a tense expression and a drop of sweat on his cheek, clearly experiencing fear or anxiety. The hooded man says that there is no problem, and she with a sword and a third man in a cloak listen carefully. He abruptly grabbed her hair, and she reacted in surprise, not understanding the reason for this behavior. He and she are standing behind a pile of fallen enemies, and he is holding a large sword, pointing at them. He shouts furiously at her, grabbing her by the shoulders, while another man calmly watches the scene. He thinks anxiously about these guys, and in the corner there is a picture of an exasperated girl expressing dissatisfaction. She turned away angrily, and he apologized for something. He sharply condemned her behavior, and another apologized to the third and asked them to excuse. He gets punched in the face before he can react. He stares intently at the incoming fist, preparing to strike. It delivers a powerful energy punch to the opponent's face, causing an explosion and a bright flash. Two people are standing in a dungeon, when suddenly a powerful explosion occurs above them, forcing one to cover his head and the other to jump back. He holds the girl in blue, who looks lifeless, and says something worriedly while she looks ahead without emotion. He is lying on the ground, breathing heavily and feeling pain from the impact. She and he look on with wariness and alarm, clearly expecting or reacting to something unexpected. He adjusts his glasses and says that he is submitting the documents. One panicked man asks for help, while the other, looking at a holographic screen, tries to understand the situation in the forest. He holds a bag of gold coins that sparkle brightly inside. He holds out the bag, and the other bends down with a smile, expressing gratitude or surprise. He and she are shouting angrily at a hooded man standing in the distance, who is calmly looking at them. He takes off his glasses in preparation for an important action or decision. He pulls his hood up in concentration, preparing for the action ahead. As they walk through the woods, he chides her for her constant problems, and she explains the importance of maintaining a good reputation for their large guild. He asks if the other is trying to blame someone for failing to defend themselves, expressing doubt and annoyance. She resolutely throws a powerful punch in the direction of the opponent. He looks away with a serious expression, lost in thought. They walk down a forest path, one begging not to cause any more trouble, and the other rudely replying not to tell him what to do. He's sitting across the table from another hooded man, discussing something important, and there's a broken bread and crumbs on the table. He smiles nervously and starts talking, answering the person in front of him. He hurries the other person, fearing that the top 30 guilds will soon catch up to him in terms of speed. He is holding a large wooden chest with gold ornaments, preparing to do something with it. A man with a mustache handed a wooden box to a hooded, white-haired man who was looking at it carefully. In the chest are scrolls with notes. He tells about the dungeons that he created. He is looking at something in front of him with delight, his eyes are shining, and a big smile with a drop of saliva is playing on his face. He gently touches the object among the scattered items, causing a slight movement. The man asked for a favor, and the other thought that they would have to pay for it because they don't give anything so easily. He anxiously asks to investigate the appearance of a sinister figure with red eyes standing on the ruined ground behind him. He asks if the other confirms that it is Parung, while the other takes the bundle out of the chest. He grits his teeth and expresses great annoyance as he looks at the other person who is standing in front of him. He stands outside the house with his head bowed and an expression of despair, surrounded by sounds that convey his depressed state. He thinks hard, sensing the presence of a sinister creature with red eyes behind him. He confidently says that the enemies will not be too strong and prepares to fight with the bear warriors. He's got sweat on his face and a tight, sinister smile on his face, as if he's preparing for something serious or dangerous. He's wearing armor and speaking to a man with golden hair who stands with his arms crossed by the rocks in the desert. He stands with his arms crossed and says something in surprise, expressing an unexpected reaction. She cries and struggles to hold or stop something, expressing strong emotions and tension. She sits quietly on the couch, ignoring the cry from the holographic screen, where two men threaten her with the words, "Do you want to die?" He cries and makes excuses, and she looks at him with displeasure and crossed arms. She touches her chin thoughtfully, lost in thought. He looks at the hologram, where one person is thanking Shira and the other is angry, expressing emotions about the situation. She is sitting on the sofa in a luxurious room, lost in thought, when suddenly there is a sound. She sat back abruptly, one hand on the surface, her hair flying against the light-patterned window. She looks up with a slight smile, as if enjoying the moment or thinking about something important. 4 skeletons are sitting on the ground. One of them is drawing something with a stick. The rest are watching carefully. A monster with glowing red eyes and 3 horns lets out a terrifying roar, filling the scene with tension and menace. A creature with horns and 4 red eyes gets hit by a lightsaber, which causes blood to spray out. A skeleton with a sword strikes at the enemy, while a man in a dark cloak watches the fight from behind. He is wearing a mask with teeth, laughing, leaning on the surface, and looking at the holographic screen. He says that he needs to continue like this in order to get to the Parung forest soon, while there are skeletons and a hooded figure standing around him. A group of men with interest and embarrassment think it might be a Hanoi mask. 3 men hug and kiss the cheek of a silent masked man, while the 4th watches them in surprise against the background of hearts. He holds back his anger, reading in his mind a declaration of love and a request for a hug. He runs away from the advancing skeletons in a panic, while the 3 behind him watch anxiously. He's masked, his eyes blazing, and he's tensely preparing for battle, gritting his teeth and sweating from the effort. He thinks with delight about how much he has to go through. He's wearing a hooded top with a tired expression, and the 2 men behind him are smiling, creating a contrast in the mood of the group. The crowd surrounded the masked man, and someone shouted his name, drawing everyone's attention. He announces a change of plans, while running away from the skeletons chasing him. He is surprised to see a man standing with a gun on his back among the rocks, and expresses bewilderment. He abruptly dodges the skeleton's attack, while the other exclaims, "Oh!" He laughs and takes off his glasses, expressing confidence and ease of conversation. With his eyes closed, he contorts his face in pain or fear, trying to contain his emotions. He smiles and slaps the back of the other man, who is struggling to stand, and says something confident. He smiles and says something with confidence, looking away. He is breathing heavily and speaking with difficulty, expressing bewilderment and tension. He smiles confidently, hands crossed, and says something against the background of red light and a sword on his back. The hooded figure is staring intently ahead, a drop of sweat on his face, clearly worried or preparing for something important. A man in a red shirt talks happily, while another with white hair exhales sharply or shouts back. He touches his chin thoughtfully with a smirk, while the other one in the hood and the skeletons behind him look dumbfounded and confused. He enthusiastically says that he is ready for any challenges and is not afraid of difficulties. He refuses to join the man with the bow, claiming he doesn't know him, surrounded by skeletons. The image shows a narrow passage between rocks, Heavy breathing and fatigue can be heard, but the characters are not visible. He clenches his fists with effort and expresses tension, as if preparing for a strong blow or overcoming an obstacle. She threatens to steal the main quest and kill him, and he offers to have fun, causing annoyance in the third with white hair. He screams in pain, clutching his head as the other watches in surprise, 4 cloaked skeletons standing around them. He studies the glowing hologram carefully, visibly flustered and focusing on the information in front of him. He looks down at the torn piece of paper with a smile and says the word, "Shoy." He stands by a lake of water lilies and looks at the 3 waterfalls illuminated by the sun rays falling from the mountains in the distance. He believes that it will be difficult, but the risk is justified by the high reward. He, along with several skeletons, dives into the water, rushing towards the light on the surface. He dives intently under the water and thinks about the correctness of the map. He thinks he hopes to get there in time by swimming in a deep cave with 2 skeletons. He carefully examines the crystal cave, noticing something important, and expresses surprise. He is rapidly moving forward, thinking that the path is too long and hopes to make it in time. With an effort, he restrains himself and tells himself that there isn't much left. He screams as he plunges into the water, from which a skull with a blue light appears. He said "wow" in delight after receiving the title of Dungeon Explorer in the crystal glittering cave. He sneaks into the cave, and the ghostly skeletons behind him confirm their suspicions with the words, "I knew it." He walks forward, followed by the skeletons, and notices that the place is quite strong. The image shows a bright glowing object with a red glow on a dark background, creating a flash or explosion effects. He says with alarm and tension in his voice, "This is..." The green creature in the cave looks surprised and alarmed. He looks ahead in bewilderment, and behind him are 2 skeletons with glowing eyes. He and the skeletons look at the green creature in surprise, expressing bewilderment without words. He shouts furiously, calling his opponents inferior, while skeletons with weapons appear around him. He watches a glowing creature in a cave that makes a strange sound. With a crazy smile and a knife in his hand, he thinks that he can get rich at the expense of these people. He laughs as he watches the 4 skeletons with weapons rush forward, ready to attack. A creature with fire inside expresses surprise or shock, which is emphasized by the bright lines around it. He and 4 skeletons with weapons are standing in front of the green slug in the cave, preparing for battle. The hooded man looks ahead intently and says with alarm, "Something unexpected is happening." The fire salamander attacks with a loud roar, and the small creature looks at it with determination. He warns of impending danger in a panic, sweating and expressing alarm. The reptile spews a fireball from its mouth, accompanied by a loud sound. Fire-breathing dinosaur attacks with a stream of fire, destroying the surrounding space. He panics as he tries to dodge the falling fireball, while the skeleton next to him also reacts to the danger. He and the skeleton sit on the ground amid the fire and smoke, feeling the heat and tension around them. He stands in front of a fire-breathing creature and a small yellow creature in a cave, preparing to fight or interact. He smiles as he looks at the glowing red ball in his hand, radiating energy and surrounded by flames. A skeleton with glowing red eyes recites the name of the spell, while 2 skeletons and a hooded figure stand nearby. He activates the bone armor while surrounded by an ominous red flame. He smiles as he holds a glowing purple skull in his hand, as if demonstrating his strength. An inner voice or character calls themselves the Skeleton Knight. A dark-armored warrior with glowing eyes and horns is surrounded by purple and fiery radiance, making ominous sounds. The fire beast rushes at the green creature with a cry, and a leg appears below, surrounded by purple energy. A dark warrior with horns and shield radiates an ominous energy as he prepares to attack. He rushes forward swiftly, surrounded by dark energy and glowing eyes, preparing to attack. A creature with fiery hands deals a powerful blow to the enemy, accompanied by loud sounds of collision. He strikes a powerful blow, surrounded by fire and energy, while the enemy tries to defend himself. He is in a frightening armor with burning eyes, concentrating on a powerful spell, surrounded by purple and orange mystical light. He said with confidence that he was about to show the Skeleton Knight in action, surrounded by a mystical purple light. He stands in front of 3 fiery creatures with sharp teeth that make hollow sounds as if preparing to attack. He is preparing for a battle with wild salamanders, who are rapidly advancing with fiery heads. 3 fire-breathing monsters let out a loud cry, releasing fireballs from their mouths. He and 3 skeletons prepare to attack an approaching demon in red armor with a horned helmet. He delivers a powerful sword strike while surrounded by glowing energies, hitting the giant creature. He stands in front of 2 skeletons and a cloaked figure, surrounded by fiery projectiles that fly towards them. He watches as the skeletons admire a warrior in armor, who proudly poses, causing the observer to be puzzled and weak. He laughs happily with Fangs, and the other, relaxing, drinks a cocktail and dreams of peace. The skeleton on the left turns into a stronger and more armored warrior on the right, symbolizing a level up. A dark, fiery shadow with a crystal in the center appears against the background of flames and gold coins, causing surprise to the observer. He smiles and says that this is more than enough to cover the cost of the upgrade. He raises his hand and loudly expresses his determination, while the skeletons and the armored warrior listen intently in the gloomy cave. He squeezes his head in pain and says, "Yes," with a pained expression on his face. He is standing in front of a swirl of purple energy when a message appears about the found dungeon throne room with an invitation to enter. He puts his hand to his head and says with an effort that he can't hold back anymore. He thinks he won't be able to play for 2 days if he goes in there and fails. He speculates that the Thunder Hunters and Red Bulls have enough time to beat him to the main quest line. He notices that he can walk around while 3 skeletons, including one in armor with horns, watch him. He stretches out his hand, radiating a powerful purple energy. He is surrounded by skeletons and purple energy, confidently stating that he can only rely on his luck. A group of heroes emerge from a glowing portal, passing a row of armored knights standing guard in a dark hall. A group of 4 characters and 2 skeletons walk along a corridor with large statues, surrounded by fog and mystical light. He notices blade marks on the statues and reports them. He looks ahead with a determined expression, his face partially covered by a mask with teeth. He is wearing armor and sitting on a throne under the light. A large sword is placed nearby, and the atmosphere seems gloomy and tense. He walks away from the throne room, where a huge armored warrior sits on a throne, surrounded by green light and a mystical atmosphere. He looks ahead intently, as if preparing for an important event or battle. He shouts for someone to hurry up, amid the green light and tense atmosphere. He strikes a powerful blow with a glowing sword at the skeletons that try to attack him. It deals a powerful blow, causing a bright flash and destruction all around. A mysterious warrior, with a burning eye, and a sword in his hand slowly strides along a dark corridor, surrounded by green ghostly lights. A monster with high-quality combat. Eye appears in shining armor with a glowing eye instead of a head. He recalls that he encountered this phenomenon in his previous life, watching a mysterious glowing object. He breathes heavily and says that he was at the same level as now, and the entire Heiho guild was there. He stands in front of a mountain of fallen warriors, and a creature with a burning eye and a sword rises above them. He thinks with tension that he had no choice but to give up then. He gritted his teeth, showing determination and tension in the dark atmosphere. He summoned skeletal warriors who are surrounded by blue flames and ready for battle. A hero in armor and creatures with bones ascend to the glowing warrior with a sword, preparing for battle in a dark room. He is gripping a sword wrapped in green flames, preparing for a powerful attack. He is in full armor, fending off the attack of skeletons that jump at him with swords in their hands. He's wearing a mask and has glowing eyes as he slashes out sharply, expressing his indignation with the words, "This guy." 2 armored warriors fight in the air, striking each other with powerful swords. A skeleton with burning eyes attacks a creature with green flames with a sword, striking out. A skeleton with a spear attacks an armored warrior who is trying to defend himself with a sword from a blow. A skeleton with shining eyes is hiding behind a suit of armor that is emitting green flames. He shouts intensely, warning of impending dangers or calling for action. A skeleton with glowing eyes releases a powerful green energy charge. The 2 fighters fall backwards as a massive blast of green energy rips through the space in front of them. 2 warriors, one in red armor with a sword, the other in a dark suit, simultaneously attack, causing the floor to collapse. A character in armor with a glowing green eye radiates powerful energy, surrounded by glowing flames and power sounds. The hooded man reacted with disbelief, expressing his doubt with a single word. He asks another man if he is not 3 times his size, standing in front of a giant creature with a sword stuck in its head. He points to himself and begins to explain to the other person that if he had to choose, then he smiles and gives a thumbs-up sign of confidence and approval. He talks tiredly about his tiredness, while the other listens to him with a smile in the forest. He is masked and has blue glowing eyes as he attacks swiftly, raising his sword to strike downwards. He says he never thought during the game, expressing confidence and determination. He fights a huge armored creature, deflecting its powerful attacks with a glowing sword. He happily reports that everything is working, showing off a glowing sword and a face mask. He swings his sword forcefully, surrounded by green mystical flames. It releases a powerful energy blast towards the enemy, creating a bright flash and a devastating effect. His eyes are closed, his face contorted with pain, blood is streaming from his mouth, and determination is visible on his face. He's got blood on his face and says something with determination, looking down in the dark. He is wearing a mask and has glowing eyes as he speaks with a smile, preparing to strike with the skull-on-hilt sword. A warrior in red armor raises his weapon to strike, surrounded by green flames, and a strong surprise or fright is expressed below. 2 men with weapons on the roof attack, and the huge sword below plunges into the ground with force. He in armor with a sword stands over the defeated enemy, expressing readiness to act. Wearing armor surrounded by green flames, he prepares for battle, radiating power and determination. He threatens his opponent, saying that there will be no dinner tonight if he doesn't defeat him. On a deserted street of the old western city, several people walk and chat, creating an atmosphere of calm and expectation. He noted that the village is developing better than expected, while in the background, 2 people are walking together and the other is watching. He told her that he had provided a good supply route so that they would not be left without resources, and she listened with confidence and a slight smile. He laughs, and she gets angry and covers her face with her hand, showing annoyance. She struggles to say that she just can't do anything, while pressing her hand to her forehead and sweating. She says that in this game you can feel. The text ends, continuation unknown, addressing the man next to her. He grins and says something with confidence and anger in his voice. He is wearing a mask and a dark cloak with shining eyes and a smile as he rushes forward, breaking down the walls around him. 2 skeletons squat and cry, one comforting the other, who is clearly upset. He clenches his fist, surrounded by fiery energy, preparing for a powerful attack. It releases a powerful fireball accompanied by loud sounds, creating a bright and dangerous effect around it. He laughs in spite of the tension, and the thing with the glowing eyes stands by, watching him. One of the characters encourages Skelly to go, to which he agrees, and both rush to the figure with a sword on top. He, with a burning blue skull and armor, fires a fire projectile, directing it in the direction of the enemy. It releases a powerful fireball that destroys the ground and causes an explosion. The 2 fight, causing a massive explosion that lifts rocks into the air and throws them to the sides. He lands with force, shattering the rocks around him and smiling with a mask on his face. He shouted out Skelly's name, while several red-armored fighters and he fought in the air among the falling rocks. He delivers a powerful blow with his sword, surrounded by energy flames and light that destroys everything in its path. He strikes a powerful blow with his sword, creating a burst of energy and a fiery flame, and in the distance, a glowing eye can be seen in the blue flame. 3 fighters quickly attack the enemy in the center, delivering powerful blows and causing destruction around. He is happy that everything is working, and says that he needs to do some more damage in the same style. A character with a burning blue eye releases a powerful fire blast from his hands, surrounded by lighting effects and destruction. The image shows a magic ball surrounded by a multicolored flame that emits powerful energy. It is engulfed in flames and explodes in a bright fiery explosion. One of the fighters is surrounded by fire and attacks, while the other with a sword watches what is happening from a raised platform. He made an effort to utter an expletive as he gripped his weapon and prepared to attack in the tense battle environment. He forcefully deflects the fiery blow with his sword, gritting his teeth and making a sound of pain. He fights off the attack with an effort, noticing that the opponent's blows are completely different from before. He throws a powerful sword strike at the enemy in the fire helmet, causing a bright flash and destruction all around. He is wearing a mask with ragged edges of the hood, shouting with determination, expressing strong emotions. He watches in surprise as a flash of fire suddenly erupts in front of him. He strikes a powerful blow, surrounded by bright flames and energy. He attacks with a flaming sword, causing a massive explosion and destruction all around. He's lying in the rubble with a wound and says irritably that he's focused too much. He panics and realizes that the situation is very bad while the fire is burning around him. He falls in armor with a wound on his chest, and a creature with a skull helmet and a fire weapon attacks him. He looks up with determination and says something important, despite the wound and the eye patch. He is in armor with a skull on his face and glowing magic in his hands, preparing for battle. He is sitting on the floor in a dark room, surrounded by glowing blue swords that suddenly appear next to him. He holds back his emotions and keeps a tense silence, despite the inner excitement. He leaps and attacks with a fireball, causing skulls to explode and casting the spell, Bone Bomb. He is in armor with a fiery head and a flaming sword surrounded by explosions and energy. He delivers a powerful fiery sword strike to the enemy in battle. He quickly moved forward, creating a bright trail of fire against the dark background. He says with an effort that you need to hold out longer in a tense combat situation. A huge creature with a burning eye and a stone body is surrounded by flying skulls in a fiery and mystical aura. He faces a massive explosion that rips through the ground and lifts debris into the air. He is breathing hard and preparing for battle, holding the weapon in his hand and showing determination despite the wound on his face. He receives a powerful fiery blow to the chest, which throws his body back. He looks ahead with fear and tension, feeling a sudden threat or pain. The glowing skull is directed towards the bombs, and the speaker orders it to be thrown there. They focus on activating a skill by saying the word skill as they prepare for battle. Skeletons suddenly attack a creature with a fiery eye, causing it to be surprised. He resolutely says the end and prepares to attack, covering one eye with his hand. He fights with several skeletons, surrounded by blue and fiery energy flashes. He is in full armor, delivering a powerful sword strike, surrounded by blue light and dark energy. He stands on a platform surrounded by skeletons and receives rewards. Money, the title Knight's Spirit, and a fragment of the knight's armor. They gain experience points and level up, surrounded by blue lights and digital effects. He says that he can't afford to make a mistake, and the other person listens carefully in a tense situation. He watches as a creature in a horned suit of armor fights the animated skeletons on the floor. A character wearing a skull helmet with horns clenches his fist and prepares for action. He noted thoughtfully that things were different now than they had been at that time. He stands with his hands in his pockets and says he won't let them get close until they give up. He is surprised to see the skeletons and the demon covering their mouths with their hands, and he asks why this is happening. Sounds of destruction can be heard all around as huge stone blocks begin to crumble and fall. He whirled around, noticing something unexpected behind him. The light coming from the open door reveals a stone throne with a closed chest on it, surrounded by a glow effect and sounds. He furiously runs towards the group of skeletons, preparing to attack. He smiles and says he doesn't care what it is. He reads an old book in the dark with surprise and anxiety. He is standing in the library, carefully studying a book, holding it in his hands. He clutched his head and screamed in pain against the glowing purple portal. He raises his hands in surprise and caution, as if trying to explain or stop something, while a drop of sweat can be seen on his face. He says with a smile that a great battle awaits him, standing on a rock in the dark of night. He is wearing a mask and snaps his fingers with a smile, expressing confidence and readiness for action. 3 skeletons in armor and a cloak show different poses, as if preparing for a fight or performance. He stands in a mask and looks at a group of skeletons in armor, who happily greet him, beaming and raising their hands. He is wearing a hood with a mask on his face, smiling, expressing confidence and secrecy. He holds the mask in his hand with a smile and makes a small sound like he's laughing to himself. He threatens to leave them behind if they don't hurry, addressing the three men in red armor and the cloaked figure. Three men with guns walk toward him, and he watches them from the shadows, preparing for a possible encounter. He smiles thoughtfully, touching a finger to his chin as the light bounces off his glasses. He shows off his muscular forearm, emphasizing strength. Three men pose against a backdrop of flowers, one proudly showing off his muscles, another smiling, and a third wearing glasses declaring that they are the family's romantic delinquents. He is wearing a mask and talking thoughtfully about a game, while two skeletons with different headdresses are visible behind him.